Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. The system is too pampering, and rewards are given in various ways. Chapter 61. In Ling Feng's hands, the 7-star Longyuan made a roaring sound, inspiring thousands of swordsmen from Wanjian City to worship. Not only that, countless long swords made buzzing sounds in a radius of thousands of miles. It seems to be welcoming the birth of a sword emperor. In the palace of the great Zhou dynasty, an old man in golden robes suddenly opened his eyes and looked in the direction of Hidden Sword Villa, his eyes a little horrified. This kind of sword pressure, there is an emperor weapon in the world. So strong. Unexpectedly, emperor weapon actually appeared in our great Zhou dynasty. Could it be that this time the 7 dynasties martial arts competition will cause our great Zhou dynasty to rise? The old man said with some excitement. Inside the Hidden Sword Villa, Ling Fong held the 7-star dragon abyss. The dragon-shaped sword energy and Haoran's righteousness surrounded him, and the powerful evil energy around him immediately dissipated. For a moment, the majestic energy broke through the sky, and the world became clear again. Many sword cultivators who had just escaped from the Hidden Sword Villa were looking in the direction of Ling Fong, their eyes a little dull. The scene before them was deeply etched in their hearts. Is it possible that Ling Fong has become the Sword Emperor? Don't say he became an emperor, I believe him even if you say he became an immortal. Junior brother is too strong. I can't find any adjectives to describe my junior brother's stature. Over the ruined sword tomb, Ling Fong stood with his sword in hand, his eyes as ice, looking at the shocked great evil king indifferently, and said calmly, "You scum, prepare to die." No, it's impossible. How could the magic sword that I worked so hard to obtain be cut off by one sword? This is absolutely impossible, impossible. The evil king couldn't believe it. At this moment, the broken demon sword in his hand suddenly emitted red light, and countless blood-red tentacles spread out from the hilt, then pierced into the body of the great evil king and began to suck his blood. When the great evil king saw this, instead of being frightened, he was extremely ecstatic. Sure enough, I knew the magic sword would not be damaged so easily. It feeds on blood. The stronger the blood food, the more powerful the sword will be. Okay, come on, demon sword, absorb it to your heart's content. The great evil king laughed and urged the essence and blood in his body to continuously pour into the magic sword. The demon sword glowed with blood. A sword power that was several times more terrifying than before erupted. The great evil king's swords merged into one and slashed towards Ling Fong. Behead the evil king and destroy the heaven and the earth. The domineering true Qi integrated union evil energy forms a 10,000-foot sword shadow, falling towards Ling Fong. Facing this sword, Ling Fong curled his lips, raised the 7-star Longyuan high in his hand, and swept out the 9-layer sword intent, slashing out with the same sword. Moment. The sky is a sword. Yellow sand is a sword. Wind and cloud are swords. The earth is a sword. All things in the world turned into the sword in Ling Feng's hand, and the sword that integrated all things in the world turned into a 10,000-foot golden dragon with the power of the 7-star dragon abyss. The dragon roars in the sky, shaking the heaven and earth. The sword combined with the great evil king's human sword produces an extreme impact. Boom! The sword shadow was disintegrating inch by inch. The evil king and the demon sword in his hand were swallowed up by the golden dragon. He only had time to let out a heart-rending scream, and then turned into ashes. Ling Fong put away Kixing Longyuan and clapped his hands. Done. Call it a day. On the side, Feng Zhengyang stared at Ling Fong and the 7-star Longyuan around his waist in amazement, and said blankly, Is this really the 7-star Longyuan? Replace it if it's fake. Why did this sword suddenly become so powerful? Perhaps Kanshin felt that he couldn't bear the loss of life, so he lent his power to Kixing Longyuan so that I could kill the great evil king. Ling Fong said nonsense. Although Feng Zhengyang didn't really believe it, he couldn't figure it out even if his head was smoking, so he could only give up for the time being and not think about it anymore. At this time, not far away, a black light shot out towards Ling Fong. That is, half of the magic sword. Even if it is broken, the evil spirit above still lingers. He even took the initiative to attack Ling Fong, trying to control him. Careful, Feng Zhengyang exclaimed. Ling Fong stretched out 2 fingers with his backhand and easily pinched it. It's just a broken sword, but you also want to carry out a sneak attack. Ling Fong smiled contemptuously. Be careful of the evil spirit on the magic sword. The reason why the magic sword is scary is not that it is indestructible, but because of its evil energy. Once it comes into contact with it, it may be controlled by it. Sure enough, the moment Ling Fong clamped the magic sword, the evil energy of the sword instantly erupted, completely covering and eroding Ling Fong. But Ling Fong was not in a hurry, and his righteousness burst out. You can control others. Control me. Dream. Ling Fong hummed softly. Haoran's righteousness became stronger and stronger. The evil energy was suppressed by the righteousness and gradually dissipated, but it was not over yet. The awe-inspiring righteousness enveloped the entire sword, dispelling the source of evil contained in it. As if feeling an unprecedented threat, the magic sword trembled crazily. The evil spirit rose, forming the image of a black-haired old man. A strong pressure spread from the old man. Junior, if you dare to break my magic sword, are you seeking death? Oh, it seems that you are the source of the evil spirit of this magic sword. Ling Fong looked at the black-haired old man curiously. The other party snorted softly. Yes, I am the sword demon. Sword demon, then go to hell. Ling Fong didn't think much, and Haoran's righteousness burst out with all his strength. With a bang, the opponent was completely destroyed. Junior, you deserve to die. When I break through the seal, I will cut you into pieces. The sword demon roared. Ling Fong didn't take it seriously. Am I still afraid of an old man like you? When the other party breaks through the seal, he doesn't know how far he has grown. When the time comes, you can easily suppress the opponent and hit him. I didn't expect that there is such a being hidden in this magic sword. The sword demon. I am afraid that this person is a martial Dao Great Emperor. Feng Zhengyang said with serious eyes. Martial Saint, Emperor Wu. Although there is only one realm of difference. But the difference is more than 1,000,000 miles away. It is said that a martial Dao Great Emperor can kill the top martial Dao Saint with one finger, which is not something that an ordinary martial saint like Feng Zhengyang can imagine. Oh, Ling Fong said without much emotion. Is the Great Emperor very powerful? He also has a master in Piaomiao Peak who claims to be invincible in the world. No matter what, the other party must be a great emperor. In addition, with his natural strength and system plugins, isn't it a certainty that he will become the great emperor in the future? Waiting for the sword demon to break through the so-called seal and come to cause trouble. He will definitely make the other party doubt his life. Looking at Ling Fong with a calm expression, Feng Zhengyang couldn't help but sigh. Are all young people today so awesome? Not even the great emperor takes it seriously. By the way, master, what are you going to do with this broken sword? Ling Fong handed the magic sword in his hand to Feng Zhengyang. Without the source of evil energy, this magic sword is just a sword made of top-quality materials and has no ability to control the mind. Feng Zhengyang looked at the broken sword, then looked at the broken Jushao Tianlei in his hand and said, this sword is made of good material, so use it to recast my sword. In addition, little friend Ling Fong, you saved Hidden Sword Villa from danger this time. From now on, Hidden Sword Villa is willing to forge swords for you for free. Ling Fong suddenly thought that he still had a master-level weapon refining technique. I don't know who is stronger and who is weaker compared to the sword-making skills of Hidden Sword Villa. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Figures came from all directions. But it was the elders of the Hidden Sword Villa who organized the disciples of the Hidden Sword Villa to take refuge when the aura of the evil heart demonic sword leaked out. They didn't come back until the evil spirit dissipated. At the same time, he also witnessed Ling Feng's graceful killing of the great evil king with one sword. I didn't expect that this great evil king would be so despicable. While we were holding a sword discussion conference, he took the opportunity to enter the sword tomb and seize the magic sword. Fortunately, little friend Ling Fong is here, otherwise the consequences would be disastrous. Yes, little friend Ling Feng's awe-inspiring righteousness is the nemesis of this evil heart demon sword. Thanks to him, the great evil king did not succeed. I never thought that in my lifetime, I would be able to see a young man with great righteousness. I am really lucky. Everyone looked at Ling Fong with admiration in their eyes. But Ling Fong was quite curious about the origin of the evil heart demon sword, and Feng Zhengyang also explained. In fact, the ancestors got this sword by chance, but because it was too evil, the ancestors wanted to prevent it from happening. In order to bring harm to the world, he forged a sword of light to suppress the demon sword and sealed it in the sword tomb. I don't know where this evil king got the news. He actually found the sword tomb and refined the blood beads of all spirits in an attempt to control the magic sword. When it comes to this, Feng Zhengyang is also a little curious. After all, very few people know about the existence of the magic sword. How did the great evil king know? Does the owner of the village remember the swordsmith Firebeard? At this time, an elder said. Hearing this, Feng Zhengyang's eyes narrowed. Of course I remember that Firebeard was one of the two most outstanding swordsmiths in our sword-hidden villa back then. But unfortunately, he walked into the devil's path and actually used human life to forge swords. In anger, he abolished his martial arts skills and drove him out of Hidden Sword Villa. Could it be that? Yes, Firebeard also knows about the magic sword. I suspect that he was the one who told the great evil king about it and took revenge on me at the Sword Hidden Villa. Oh, it's all the result that was planted back then, that's all. Feng Zhengyang sighed and stopped thinking about it. Then, they began to deal with the aftermath of the fencing competition. Due to the influence of the great evil king, the sword discussion conference was forced to be interrupted, but it was almost over before the interruption. Therefore, the 10 winners of the sword discussion conference have been selected. It is worth mentioning that, among these 10 swordsmen, White Cloud Sect accounts for 5. They are Ling Fong, Ji Yu Linglong, Lang Ning Shuang, Feng Xiaoyao and Zhang Ruochen. Needless to say, Ling Fong, everyone is convinced. If you dare to say a word of dissatisfaction, others will drown you with their spit without Ling Fong personally taking action. The other 4 are at least at the peak level of Wuzong. Entering the top 10 is reasonable. Many people are feeling emotional. White Cloud Sect has become the climate. Compared to other sects, White Cloud Sect is now the #1 sect in Great Zhou. Just Ling Fong, no one will be dissatisfied. After the 10 sword cultivators were selected, they were all given a famous sword. The remaining sword cultivators were smiling from ear to ear. But Ji Yu Linglong and the others were not very interested. After all, they all have a lot of money at their disposal. How can an ordinary famous sword catch their eyes? Everyone can only lament that it is so annoying to compare people with each other, so you have to throw away the goods. The famous sword that I worked so hard for. The other party actually abandoned it like worn-out shoes. After the sword discussion conference ended, Ling Fong and the others did not leave, but were warmly invited by Feng Zhengyang to stay in Zhangjian Villa for a few days, allowing them to enjoy the friendship of landlords. Ling Fong and the others did not refuse. Time flies. This day, outside Hidden Sword Villa, an old man with fiery red hair suddenly arrived. He had a strong body and muscles like molten iron. The whole person exudes a ferocious aura. Hidden Sword Villa, it's been 30 years. I'm finally back. Feng Zhengyang, Feng Shangzi. I will definitely cleanse myself of the shame you brought on Firebeard. The red-haired old man said with cold eyes. He took one step forward and walked into Hidden Sword Villa. Moment. A surging flame true chi surged out, shaking the villa. The disciples of Hidden Sword Villa who had just experienced the great evil king's rebellion couldn't help but be stunned. Then he felt like crying without tears. You're still letting people live, why are you causing trouble again? Who is it this time? This breath comes from a bad person. Feng Zhengyang and a white-haired swordsmith who were forging swords in the sword hut looked at each other in surprise after feeling the aura. Is he back? Impossible, I clearly destroyed his cultivation back then. Feng Zhengyang frowned. His figure flashed, and he and the white-haired old man left the sword house and came to the entrance of the villa. After seeing the red-haired old man, his pupils shrank slightly. It's you indeed, Firebeard. I didn't expect you would dare to come back. The wind was rising, and the white-haired old man was so angry that he gritted his teeth. And Firebeard laughed, why don't I dare to come back? By the way, did the great evil king satisfy you a few days ago? Sure enough, it was you who told the great evil king about the magic sword. So what? Back then, when you kicked me out of the villa, you should have thought that we would be in this situation. No, I ruined your martial arts back then, and your current level of cultivation is a top martial arts master. How did you do it? Humph, Feng Zhengyang, you didn't expect that I got the fire divine art by chance. This technique requires a person with no martial arts to be able to practice it and survive after death. In these years, I have experienced the fierce fire through the burning pain. I finally mastered this magical skill, otherwise why do you think I dare to come back? So what if it's the fire divine art? Hidden Sword Villa is not a place for you to run wild. Feng Zhengyang snorted coldly. Don't worry, I came to Hidden Sword Villa today not to fight, but to come to you, to make swords. I want to prove to the world that I, Firebeard, am the best swordsmith in the world. Feng Shangzi, you are as the #1 swordsmith of Hidden Sword Villa, you dare to compete with me. Firebeard looked at the white-haired old man and said coldly. It's funny, you just want to compete. Feng Shangzi snorted lightly and ignored the other party at all. You guys must compete. At this time, a cold voice came from behind Firebeard, and a young man in golden robes walked out slowly. Behind him, there was a man in black carrying a giant sword, exuding a heavy and domineering sword intent. When Feng Zhengyang saw these two people, his eyes narrowed. It's you. The third prince of Dachu, and one of the martial saints of the 3 major towns of Dachu, Chu Badian. He came back to his senses and looked at Firebeard. Okay, Firebeard, you actually betrayed Dazhou and joined Dachu. Oh, yes, I am now the palace swordsmith of Dachu. Firebeard said proudly. Oh, this is the first time I've seen someone betray their own country and be so complacent. It's really eye-opening. An indifferent voice came. Ling Fong came slowly with Jiu Linglong and others. Seeing him, Firebeard frowned. Who are you? Your grandpa. Boy, let's be arrogant. Firebeard blew his beard and stared in anger. True Q erupted from his body like a wildfire, and the surrounding temperature rose sharply. Ling Fong squinted his eyes slightly, and with a swish, disappeared directly on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Firebeard, and with a slap, he flew away and smashed into the pond not far away. Water splashes. Ling Fong played with his fingers and said with a faint smile, it's not good for the old man to be so angry. Go and cool down in the water. Shock. The man in golden robe and Chu Tianba, the martial saint of Dachu town, could not help but be shocked. They stared at Ling Fong with deep fear in their eyes. Who is this young man? He actually has such strength. Firebeard is a top martial artist no matter what, but he was whipped out without any resistance. This person's strength is too terrifying. The most important thing is his age. How can such a young man have such strength? Even if he started practicing martial arts in his mother's womb, it wouldn't be such an exaggeration. Thoughts flashed through the hearts of the third prince and Chu Tianba. At this time, the Firebeard who was knocked into the pond rushed out, bursting out with true chi. The strong and overbearing fire surged out, evaporating the surrounding pond water, and even the fish in the pond were cooked directly. A good pond turned into a pot of fish soup. Ling Fong shook his head. What a waste of natural resources. Boy, the matter between me and Hidden Sword Villa has nothing to do with you. Why do you want to interfere? Firebeard said coldly. He also saw that Ling Feng's strength was no longer simple, so he did not dare to act rashly. Oh, I just intervened if I wanted to. What can you do? Ling Fong asked, tilting his head. It looks like the young master is happy and the young master is happy. Huo Beard's face turned livid with anger. He looked at Chu Tianba next to him, and Chu Tianba gradually exuded a strong coercion. He said lightly, I came here today to help Master Huo settle a case. Wishful thinking. Feng Zhengyang, it's best if you agree to compete with him at Hidden Sword Villa. If you don't agree, then don't blame me for making a big fuss at Hidden Sword Villa today. The sword intent on him keeps rising, and the sword pressure is so strong that it gradually suppresses Feng Zhengyang. He is obviously not an ordinary martial saint. Martial saint is indeed a very important person. This person's cultivation level is at least the 4th level of martial saint, or even the 5th level. If I fight with him, I will lose more than I win. Feng Zhengyang thought to himself. Feng Shangzi, who was next to him, also saw this and stood up. Firebeard, you want to compete with me in making swords, then I'll help you. Ha ha ha, okay. Firebeard laughed loudly. I want to add another condition. If anyone loses, he will cut off his arms on the spot and never forge a sword. Everyone was in an uproar. I didn't expect Firebeard's bet to be so big. Feng Shangzi's eyes darkened and he snorted. Okay, as you wish. Master, are you sure? Feng Zhengyang asked with a frown. I am the #1 swordsmith of Hidden Sword Villa. Firebeard cannot be my opponent. He couldn't beat me back then, and it's the same now. Feng Shangzi had confidence on his face. Looking at Ling Fong next to him, he always felt that this Master Feng had planted a flag for himself. This declaration, no matter how you look at it, is the rhythm of losing. Maybe I've read too many novels, Ling Fong muttered. Soon, Feng Shangzi and Huo Wozi came to the sword cottage of King John Villa. This is the place where swords are made in the villa, and there are all kinds of casting materials. The two sides looked at each other and began to forge swords without saying a word. Ling Fong and others watched from the sidelines. I saw that these two swordsmiths were constantly using their tricks, displaying various sword-making techniques, which dazzled everyone who saw them. A piece of dark iron was continuously beaten into shape in their hands. The sound of iron striking echoed throughout the Zhonglu. Every sound carries a strange rhythm. As swordsmen, everyone couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction in their hearts as they watched the sword gradually take shape, and they watched with fascination. Suddenly, Firebeard took out a blood-red bead from his arms and threw it into the sword-making furnace. A scarlet bloody aura suddenly spread out. That's the blood bead of all souls. Firebeard, not only do you not repent, you still use human lives to forge swords, but you go even further and use the blood beads of all souls that can be condensed from the blood of tens of thousands of people to forge swords. You are simply a beast. Feng Zhengyang said angrily, but Firebeard didn't care, with a hint of madness on his face. Haha, as long as I can beat you and prove that I am the best swordsmith in the world, what does the blood and blood of these mere 10,000 people mean to me? Quote. After saying that, he began to integrate the power of the blood beads of all spirits into the sword embryo in his hand. The sword gradually turned blood red. There was a terrifying coercion. In a daze, everyone saw countless innocent souls wrapped around the sword. They couldn't help but feel their scalps numb and their eyes were horrified. Ling Fong also took a look, but his expression was quite strange. That's it. It took thousands of people's blood and essence to refine such a sword at such a high price. It looks like, so. Ling Fong felt that if he was allowed to forge it, he could create a weapon much stronger than this sword even without using the 10,000 spirits' blood beads. It seems that this is the level of Firebeard. Let's take a look at Feng Shangzi's side. The other party is wholeheartedly focused on the sword in his hand and is not affected. But in Ling Feng's opinion, his casting skills are just that. Just a little bit better than Firebeard. But now that Firebeard has used the All Souls blood bead, he is in danger. Another hour passed. The swords in their hands have been forged. The whole body was blood red, exuding evil aura. The light of the sword was restrained, shrouded in a deep chill. Although the sword has been cast, how to evaluate the quality has become a problem. The people present at the Sword Hidden Villa will naturally side with Feng Shangzi, so their evaluation will not count. If you want to evaluate which sword is better, it couldn't be simpler. Just use these two swords to strike against each other. Wouldn't that be enough? At this time, Chu Tianba said lightly. He, Chu Martial Saint is right. Feng Shangzi, do you dare? Firebeard looked at Feng Shangzi provocatively, and the other person raised his eyebrows. What are you afraid of? Come on. The two of them each took their own swords and struck at each other hard. A sonorous sound. The two swords collided with each other, making a strong sound of gold and iron. Huo Beard and Feng Shangzi each took 2 steps back. The sword in his hand buzzed and trembled. Then they struck again. There was another violent sound of gold and iron. And this time, the sword in Feng Shangzi's hand just broke. Ha, Feng Shangzi, you are defeated. I am the best swordsmith in the world. Firebeard's long-cherished wish came true and he was ecstatic. Feng Shangzi looked at the broken sword in his hand and couldn't help but look stunned. Then he smiled bitterly and said, yes, I lost. Master Feng, you are not defeated. It is Huo Beard who is shameless. He actually used the blood beads of all spirits to forge a sword. He is so cruel and heartless. He will get retribution one day. That's right, Master Feng, when it comes to sword-making skills, you definitely didn't lose. You just lost because you were too kind. Otherwise, if you get a myriad spirit blood bead to refine the sword, it would definitely be thousands of times stronger than the one refined by Firebeard. Quote. Good. Everyone talked a lot and comforted Feng Shangzi. Firebeard's face darkened, and he snorted coldly. No matter what you say, it's useless. If you lose, you lose. Feng Shangzi, just cut off your arms. Good. Feng Shangzi gritted his teeth and was willing to admit defeat. He picked up the broken sword and slashed at his other arm. But at this time, 2 fingers stretched out from the side and clamped the sword. Ling Feng's voice sounded slowly, "It doesn't matter if you lose, I'll just help you win it back." "Little friend Ling, can you help me win it back?" "What do you mean?" "Literal meaning." Ling Fong smiled slightly, looked at Firebeard, and said calmly, "Although Master Feng lost to you, I want to help him win back. Let's do this. I will also forge a sword. If it is better than the one in your hand, I will wave it." Master Feng cut off his arms. "Why, I just want to see him break his arms now." Firebeard sneered, "If I can't win against you, it won't be too late for him to cut off his arms. Moreover, if I can't win, not only will Master Feng cut off his arms, but I will also cut off my arms, plus this 7-star dragon abyss, given to you. How about it?" Ling Fong took off the 7-star long yuan from his waist and inserted it into the ground. A fierce sword pressure filled the air. The swords in the entire Jianlu trembled. It's like welcoming the Emperor of Swords. What a powerful sword. As a swordsmith, Firebeard naturally knows how powerful the 7-star long yuan is in front of him. This sword is definitely the strongest sword he has ever seen. Even the magic sword can't compare. Okay, you want to give me a sword, I don't want it." Firebeard laughed and agreed directly. Ji Yu Linglong and others were a little worried about Lang Ningxuang next to Ling Fong. "Junior brother Ling, isn't this too risky?" "Yeah, let's not gamble." Although they knew that Ling Feng's cultivation level was extremely high, and his level of swordsmanship was even higher than that of Zhou dynasty, but swordsmanship and sword making were 2 different things. They have never heard that Ling Fong can make swords. I heard that the other party had a friend who forged so many Chu Shui swords in the White Cloud Sect. Thinking of the friend Ling Fong mentioned, a bold idea suddenly appeared in several people's minds. No way, could it be? Ling Fong smiled at everyone, "Don't worry, I'm sure." Then he looked at Firebeard, "I put out such a big bet, wouldn't it be very unfair if you didn't take any of it?" "I still say the same thing, if you win, I will cut off both my arms." "Very good." Ling Fong nodded, then took the broken sword in Feng Shangzi's hand. "I will recast this sword and use it to defeat the one in your hand." Firebeard seemed to have heard some joke and couldn't help but laugh. "When this sword is intact, it can't beat the sword in my hand. So what if you recast it? You are just repeating the same mistakes." "Oh, let's wait and see." Ling Fong smiled slightly and did not explain. Then, he slowly walked to the sword house that was burning with blazing fire. When he raised his hand, the majestic true qi surged out. I saw the endless fire in the sword house suddenly surged out. They meet in the air and form 8 fire dragons. Such a spectacular sight made everyone stunned. What kind of sword-making technique is this? Unheard of. Seeing this scene, Firebeard suddenly felt something bad in his heart. But then, the long swords around the sword house began to tremble. Swords flew out one after another, flying towards the 8 fire dragons, and then turned into molten iron under the extremely scorching heat. Molten iron was poured onto the broken sword, gradually repairing it. Not only that, thousands of swords turned into molten iron, condensed on one sword. It means that this sword has integrated the essence of thousands of long swords. Its power is unimaginable. In less than a quarter of an hour, a brand new long sword was forged. The speed was surprising. And looking at the long sword with cold light in Ling Feng's hand, an inexplicable chill suddenly came into their hearts. It's as if that sword contains an irresistible peerless edge. "Come on, touch it." Ling Feng looked at Huo Beard with a smile. Pretending to be a ghost. The sword was made with great fanfare, but it was forged so quickly. It is obvious at first glance that it is crudely made. How can it be compared to my sword? Firebeard snorted coldly, and slashed at the sword in Ling Feng's hand with his long sword. When he swung it, the sound of the ghost's wailing was accompanied by it. Then there was a clanging sound. The wails of all ghosts suddenly ceased. The sword in Firebeard's hand was broken into 2 pieces. Look again at the sword in Ling Feng's hand, unscathed. Firebeard was stunned. Broken. How is this possible? No, that's not true. The sword I refined with the blood beads of all spirits may not be as good as the sky-splitting sword that ranks first in the famous sword manual. How could it be broken after just one cut? Firebeard shook his head, looking like he couldn't believe it. Ling Fong looked at him with a smile. The winner has been decided. Should I cut off your hands for you, or should you do it yourself? No, it's impossible. You must have done something. Otherwise, how could my sword be broken? I don't accept it. Firebeard wanted to cheat on the spot. You are so old, why are you still so shameless? Ling Fong shook his head helplessly. It seems that you don't want to do it yourself, so I'll do it myself. He slowly walked towards the opponent with his sword in hand, while Huo Huzi was afraid and took several steps back, hiding behind Chu Tianba. Chu Tianba looked at Ling Fong indifferently and said calmly, he is the palace swordsmith of my Da Chu. You can't break his arms. If you can't kill him, it's not impossible to use yours instead. HMPH, boy, don't be so presumptuous. You are the ones who are presumptuous. Ling Fong shouted coldly, and the 9-level sword intent exploded completely, turning into a hurricane and sweeping away. 7-star Longyuan also flew from the side and fell into his hand. With the sword in hand, sword intent is enhanced again. The domineering dragon-shaped sword energy surrounded them, roaring like a golden dragon, and a pair of dragon eyes showed endless majesty, locking on Chu Tianba and the others. It's not polite at all to come to someone else's house and mess around. Now I've lost a bet and I'm still messing around. Are you calling me impudent? If I get really bold, I'll kill you here, and then go to your Dachu palace and kill your emperor too. Ling Fong said coldly. Chu Tianba's face was extremely ugly. Looking at Ling Fong, he could not help but feel strong fear in his heart. Good boy, with such a level of cultivation, you are by no means an unknown person. Tell me, who is your master? Ling Fong, tutor Lu Rusi. Lu Rusi. Hearing this name, Chu Tianba, who had originally planned to fight, seemed to have thought of something terrifying, and a trace of panic appeared on his face. His expression changed several times, and then he grabbed Firebeard, turned his palm into a knife, and cut off the opponent's arms directly. Ah 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 ah! Firebeard screamed and fainted from the pain. Now, is that okay? Chu Tianba said. Ling Fong was stunned for a moment. He originally thought he would have to fight with the opponent. Unexpectedly, when the other party heard his master's name, he would give in so decisively. Has your master's reputation spread to Da Chu? It's not right. Lu Rusi had a self-destructive image in Zhou dynasty before. Ling Fong plans to ask the other party after he returns. Okay, I guess you know the truth. HMPH, I hope to see you at the 7 Dynasties conference. After Chu Tianba finished speaking, he grabbed Firebeard and left quickly. The third prince took a deep look at Ling Fong, then turned around and followed Chu Tianba. A dispute has come to an end. However, the method Ling Fong used when forging the sword just now is still fresh in the memory of everyone present. Looking at him is like looking at the god of weapon refinement. Ding. Closing square bracket. Congratulations to the host for successfully forging a sword for the first time and successfully scaring off a martial saint. The host will be rewarded with a talent draw. Ling Fong was not surprised when he heard the system prompt. However, he has not obtained something like talent lottery for a long time. The previous draws had given him a good experience. For example, infinite charm, transcendent level understanding, insight, becoming stronger when drinking. These all bring him great convenience. I don't know what good talents I can draw this time. Suddenly, a magical talent emerged in his mind. Glaring at so-and-so for being pregnant. As long as you don't draw this talent, everything is fine. After scaring Chu Tianba and others away, Feng Zhengyang, Feng Shangzi and others expressed their gratitude to Ling Fong, especially Feng Shangzi, who was even more frightened. If little friend Ling hadn't helped, my hands would have been gone. Quote, losing one's hands is unacceptable to anyone. This is especially true for swordsmiths. It doesn't matter. Since we are guests at Hidden Sword Villa, it is reasonable to help. Ling Fong said with a slight smile. Little friend Ling is indeed a man of great righteousness and has a chivalrous heart. Feng Shangzi said with emotion. Then he thought of Ling Feng's sword-making method, and asked curiously, I wonder who Ling Xiaoyu's sword-making method came from, and it is so exquisite. When I was traveling, I fell into a cliff. Fortunately, I survived and got the sword-making method from an old man. Ling Fong gave a random reason. But no one doubted it. After all, how could a gentleman like Ling Xiaoyu lie to others? If you survive a disaster, you will be blessed later. Little friend Ling is really born rich and can turn danger into safety. Little friend Ling is really lucky to have you in White Cloud Sect. Yeah, I'm really envious. If you, Ling, belong to my hidden sword villa, then even if I give up my position as the owner of the villa, I will have no problem with it. Listening to everyone's words, Ling Fong felt ashamed. Especially when he heard that Feng Zhengyang was about to give up his position as the owner of the village, he waved his hands repeatedly. Good guy, has his prestige actually reached this point? Junior brother, you must have forged the Chushui sword. At this time, Ji Yu Linglong and others came up and said quietly. How could they say there were so many autumn water swords suddenly appearing? The co-authors were all cast by their junior brothers. Ling Fong touched his head and just smiled without explaining. Anyway, with his casting skills, it is not a problem to cast hundreds of Chu Shui swords, so just regard them as cast by him. The other side, Chu Tianba left Hidden Sword Villa with a Firebeard like a dead dog. Go back all the way in the direction of Dachu. On the road. The third prince asked curiously, Third uncle, is that young man's background really so terrifying? Even you are so afraid of him. Your Highness, that young man is unpredictable. If I fight him, I am not sure of victory, but the most important thing is, his master. That person named Lu Rusi. The name sounds like a woman. Indeed, she is the most terrifying woman I have ever seen. There was a hint of fear in Chu Tianba's eyes. 20 years ago, I came here to test Da Zhou's martial Dao background. At that time, I had become a martial saint. During the training process, I defeated many people. Few masters. Even the so-called strong men in the heavenly ranking of Great Zhou are no match for me. At that time, I thought Dazhou was just like this. Until one day, on the way back to Dachu, I met a drunk woman. The woman was extremely beautiful, so beautiful that it was breathtaking. I couldn't help but feel moved. I wanted to take her back to be my princess, but I made a miscalculation. Although that woman is beautiful, she is indeed a monster. She seemed to be aware of my intention, raised her hand and punched me. She flew me dozens of miles away and almost made me die on the spot. Speaking of this, Chu Tianba suddenly opened his clothes. His chest was suddenly sunken, with a fist mark still clearly visible on it, and a domineering fist spirit permeating it. 20 years have passed, and this fist seal is still there. Its fist will still torture me from time to time. 20 years ago, I was the 4th level of martial saint, but 20 years later, I am still a martial saint. 4th level, not even an inch forward. It's because of the impact of this punch, otherwise, I would have reached the 9th level of martial saint. You can even step into the realm of the great saint. And the woman who hit me so hard was Lu Rusi. This was because she was so drunk at the time, otherwise. Thinking of this, Chu Tianba felt lingering fear. He was so drunk that he, the martial saint, could be severely injured and on the verge of death with one punch. If you weren't drunk, I'm afraid he would have died a long time ago. After hearing Chu Tianba's experience, the third prince couldn't help but take a breath of air. There is such a person in the territory of the Great Zhou. If such a person represents the Great Zhou in the 7 Dynasties Conference, wouldn't it be very dangerous for us? Don't worry, Your Highness, I have inquired about it. This Lu Rusi has never been interested in worldly affairs, never interfered in dynastic disputes, drank and gambled all day long, and would never participate in the 7 Dynasties Conference. On the contrary, the young man we just met, she your disciple needs to pay attention, Chu Tianba said. Well, when I get back, I will report this to my father. He looked at Firebeard again and said, Third uncle, this man has lost his hands and is of no use to me. I'm afraid he won't be of any use to me. No, although his hands are broken, his sword-making knowledge is still there. If you want to forge the sword of all demons and unlock the seal of the sword demon, you still need his help. 2. Stayed at Hidden Sword Villa for another day. Ling Fong planned to return to Piamiao Peak. Before leaving, Feng Zhengyang told Ling Fong about the 7 Dynasties Conference. The 7 Dynasties Conference will be held on the top of the sky in 1 month. At that time, the representatives of the great Zhou dynasty will first gather in the palace and go together. I hope that little friend Ling can come with him. Must. Ling Fong nodded. This is what he promised the wine saint, and he will naturally not go back on it. Then he took Jiyu Linglong and others back to White Cloud Sect. On the way, he also remembered about the talent lottery and used it directly. It's still the familiar turntable. There are various talents on the wheel. 10 times the power, 10 times speed, elementary self-healing, transcendent level self-healing, invulnerable to all poisons. Invulnerable to all poisons, man like the wind. Glaring at so-and-so for being pregnant. There are all kinds of talents. When Ling Fong saw the familiar one glaring at so-and-so for being pregnant, he couldn't help but twitching at the corner of his mouth. Sure enough, it showed up again. System, you did it on purpose. Absolutely impossible, it's all random. Closing square bracket. Forget it, let's draw the lottery. Ling Fong said. The carousel immediately began to rotate, and talents passed by one. Ding. Closing square bracket. Congratulations to the host for getting the talent, a man like the wind. Ling Fong was slightly stunned. What is this? A man like the wind. This talent allows the host to be blessed by the wind during movement, increasing the speed. Closing square bracket. The talent to increase speed is not bad, but how much can this talent increase my speed? Ling Fong was a little curious. Probably a little bit. Forget it, a little bit is fine. In a battle between experts, even a small difference is enough to determine the outcome. Ling Fong thought to himself, and then integrated union this talent. He couldn't wait to try it. The figure flashed. Jiyu Linglong and others only felt a whoosh, and a strong wind swept past in front of them, and then their dear junior brother disappeared. Boom! Dozens of miles away, there was an explosion from a mountain. Because the speed became too fast, Ling Fong ran straight into the mountain and walked out of the ruins. The corner of his mouth twitched and said, System, please explain, what is a little bit? It's Yidiandian. Looking at the broken mountain peaks in front of him, the corners of Ling Feng's mouth twitched slightly. If he hadn't had Tru Chi to protect him, he would have crashed to death here. This is what the system says. It was completely different from what he had imagined. With a movement of his body, Tru Chi turned into wings and soared into the sky. The speed was so fast that it was like a rainbow. In the blink of an eye, it was high up in the sky. Because the speed is so fast, it even makes a sonic boom sound during the movement. This speed is several times faster than martial saint. Ling Fong was a little emotional. As the saying goes, all martial arts in the world are invincible, except speed. At this speed, he felt that even if 10 martial saints came to attack him, he could escape easily. Whoosh! Jiyu Linglong and others hurried over. Junior brother, what happened? Why did you just disappear and appear here? Jiyu Linglong asked curiously. Oh, it's okay. I had some enlightenment during the flight just now, so I created a movement technique of my own and gave it a try. Ling Fong is already very good at telling lies. Few people had any doubts. After all, my junior brother is so upright, how can he lie and deceive others? Even if it is a lie, that must be a white lie too. In short, whatever the junior brother says is whatever it is. His body skills are worthy of being a junior brother. This body skill must be shocking to the heavens and ghosts. It can actually cross a distance of tens of thousands of feet in an instant. Several people said with admiration. Ling Fong nodded, it's okay. No longer worrying about physical skills, several people returned to White Cloud Sect. When the Lord of White Cloud Sect saw them coming back, they all knew what happened in the Hidden Sword Villa and greatly appreciated Ling Fong and the others. Now, the new Hidden Dragon list has come out. Zhao Feng is still at the top of the Hidden Dragon list, and Linglong and the others are also on it. 5 of the top 10 on the Hidden Dragon list are my disciples of White Cloud Sect. Haha, you really make me look good. The White Cloud Sect Master laughed and was beaming with excitement. Sect Master, are you ranked on the heavenly ranking list? Jiyu Linglong asked curiously. They no longer care about the Hidden Dragon list or anything like that. Now they just want to see where Ling Fong ranks on the ranking list. Heavenly list, I heard it will be released tomorrow. I think junior brother can definitely replace the sky-splitting sword master and be ranked number 1. Jiyu Linglong and others have great confidence in Ling Fong. But Ling Fong himself didn't pay much attention to this matter. He smiled and said, "It doesn't matter where you are ranked, it's just a false reputation. Junior brother is just a junior brother, he always regards fame and wealth as floating clouds. Yes, you are truly a role model for us." The corners of Ling Feng's mouth twitched slightly. "Is it necessary? I just said something casually and you guys praised me." Ling Fong shook his head helplessly, then said goodbye to everyone, and returned to Piaomiao Peak to meet Lu Rusi. As soon as he returned to the house, he saw Lu Rusi lying on the ground holding several wine jars, sleeping soundly. It was, as always. The most important thing is that the other party's sleeping appearance is extremely unsightly. The clothes are half unbuttoned, revealing the delicate white shoulders. Looking down along the curve of the shoulders, the pair of plump and round peaks are even more visible. Really, this is me. What if someone else breaks in suddenly? Ling Fong muttered. But he also knew that except for him, Ji Yu Linglong, Lang Ningshuang and others, basically no one came to Piaomiao Peak. No one else would enter the house directly except him. They will be notified first. After all, Lu Rusi is still an elder, and the sword he used to kill the strong men on the Tianbang list is still fresh in the memory of many people, and they dare not lose their etiquette. Put away the wine jar on the ground. Ling Fong skillfully picked up Lu Rusi and placed him on the bed. The other person hugged his neck and opened his blurred eyes slightly. "Well, you are back, my good disciple. Quickly, go cook for the teacher." The corner of Ling Feng's mouth twitched. Then he threw Lu Rusi directly on the bed and turned around to leave. "Do you want me to cook when you get back? Make one." Oops, Lu Rusi was hit so hard that her butt hurt. She stood up and rubbed her butt. She said with a face full of embarrassment, "This good disciple really doesn't know how to be charming." She got up and walked out of the house, stretched, looked at Ling Fong who was teasing Qingluan not far away, and said, "You bad bird, it kept calling when you weren't here, and I almost ate it several times." "Smelly woman, drunkard." Qingluan flapped his wings and said. Lu Rusi's eyes narrowed slightly, revealing a dangerous light. "Can you say that again?" Qingluan was so frightened that he shrank his neck and didn't dare to speak any more. He lay on Ling Feng's shoulder obediently, and Ling Feng touched the other person's little head. "She is still a child, master, don't scare her." Ling Feng was angry. "Yes, yes, yes." Lu Rusi rolled his eyes, and then asked, "Did the trip to Hidden Sword Villa go smoothly?" "Well, there was a little accident along the way, but it went smoothly. Not long ago, an emperor weapon seemed to have appeared there. Can you?" Lu Rusi wanted to say something else, but suddenly noticed the Qixing Longyuan aura around Ling Feng's waist change drastically, and couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. "The emperor weapon, is it Qixing Longyuan?" "I think so. Why did you kids suddenly turn Qixing Longyuan into emperor weapon?" "It just changed suddenly." Changed suddenly. Lu Rusi glanced at Ling Feng suspiciously, but he also knew that his apprentice had a secret, so he didn't ask any more questions. "By the way, master, do you know magic?" Ling Feng asked curiously. "Spell, why do you ask this suddenly? I heard that above the emperor level skills, there are spells. You always say that you are the reincarnation of an immortal, so I wanted to ask if you can do spells." "Haha, then you are asking the right person. At the end of martial arts, Ascension becomes an immortal, and the techniques used by immortals are spells. Of course I know spells, and there are many more. Why, you want to learn them?" Ling Feng nodded repeatedly. "I think so." "Beg me." Lu Rusi thought about what happened when Ling Feng threw her on the bed just now, and wanted to embarrass her apprentice and let him know who is in charge of this Piaomiao Peak. Let him know that his master is also majestic. After hearing this, Ling Feng stepped forward, took Lu Rusi's hand and shook it. "Please, good master." He opened his big, pure and clear eyes and looked at Lu Rusi. Hiss. Lu Rusi gasped on the spot. My heart seemed to have been hit directly, as if it was about to melt away. Foul, so foul. How can someone in the world act like a coquettish person, so beautiful and cute? Study. He must learn. What spell do you want to learn? Lu Rusi suppressed her pounding heart and pretended to be calm. But her trembling hands and reddish cheeks said it all. "I will learn whatever master teaches me." Ling Feng tilted his head and thought for a moment, then said seriously. Hiss. Lu Rusi's heart was hit again. She couldn't bear it, so she hugged Ling Feng directly, pressed him into her chest, and rubbed his head. My good disciple, how can you be so cute? Nirvana. As a teacher, I will teach you all the spells I know, for you. Master, I can't breathe. The next day, Lu Rusi began to teach Ling Fong magic. Because Ling Fong didn't have enough cultivation before, she never taught him, but now, Ling Fong can barely practice. Spells are the secrets of heaven and earth. An ordinary martial artist can spend his whole life practicing magic and still not be able to succeed. And even if he succeeds in practicing magic, he can't use it much if he is not an immortal. Otherwise, you will hurt the enemy and even your body. There are many spells that I have learned as a master. Today I will teach you a relatively simple one. Its name is 10,000 Swords Technique. Ling Fong was stunned for a moment when he heard this. Wanjian Ju. This name sounds lofty as soon as you hear it. In Lu Rusi's mouth, it turned out to be a relatively simple spell. Is it because he has too little understanding of magic, or is Lu Rusi's vision too high? I saw Lu Rusi's sword fingers condensed, and a sword energy burst out from the fingertips. The sword energy differentiated in the air, and then one transformed into two, and two transformed into four. In the blink of an eye, the world is already filled with countless sword energies. They are densely packed, forming a vision of thousands of swords soaring into the sky. This is the 10,000 Swords Technique, where one sword transforms 10,000 swords. Commanding 10,000 swords is like arranging troops to advance and retreat freely. Lu Rusi said lightly. Her sword finger moved slightly. The sword energy hovered around her, advancing and retreating in an orderly manner, obeying her words. They even intertwined in the air to form two big characters. Ling Fong. Then the sword energy dispersed. Lu Rusi told Ling Fong the essentials of Wanjian Ju, practice hard. Although Wanjian Ju is just a simpler spell, it is not comparable to ordinary emperor-level skills. It would be impossible for ordinary people to practice it in a lifetime. To understand the secret, you have a good understanding, maybe it will take you a few years. Ling Fong nodded, I will work hard. Then, he sat cross-legged and began to comprehend the 10,000 swords art. Gradually, he enters an ethereal state in which he forgets both things and himself. Sword energy began to escape from his body. Lu Rusi noticed this scene and immediately opened his eyes. This is an epiphany. Is this a direct epiphany? Oh my God, my good disciple actually has such understanding. Lu Rusi has long known that Ling Feng's understanding is extraordinary. But this scene still shocked her. This kind of understanding is extremely shocking in the immortal world. Thinking of this, her eyes lit up. Maybe one day, my good disciple can really help me complete the thing. After an hour passed, Ling Fong suddenly opened his eyes. A thought came to my mind. A ray of sword energy flew out from his body and divided into the void. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8. In the blink of an eye, thousands of swords were hanging in the air. Wanjian Ju, completed. Although it is much less powerful than the sword energy displayed by Lu Rusi, this is indeed the authentic Wanjian Ju. Lu Rusi's eyes are a little dull. How long did it take her to learn Wanjian Ju? A month, 2 months. She is like this, even in the immortal world, she is a famous talent in the world. But what about Ling Fong? It only took an hour. If she is considered a genius, then who is Ling Fong? Son of the road, the darling of heaven and earth. Luck protagonist. Lu Rusi thought of the protagonists described in the storybooks he had read before, then walked up to Ling Fong, patted him on the shoulder, and said sincerely, my dear disciple, I will leave the task of saving the world to you in the future. Ling Fong was stunned for a moment. Where did my master go wrong? It is said in the storybook that people like you are the protagonists of luck. They are loved by the world and will definitely save the world in the future. Master, read less of the commonplace books. Ling Feng's mouth twitched slightly. In short, your 10,000 swords technique can be regarded as a preliminary success in practice. You just need to get familiar with it. As for other spells, my dear disciple, have you ever heard that you can eat them all over the world with one move? Your 10,000 swords technique is enough to run rampant in the sky world. I went drinking. Lu Rusi hugged the wine jar and went to drink by herself. In fact, I was a little bit shocked by Ling Fong. However, as she drank, she thought that Ling Fong was her apprentice, and she couldn't help but feel proud and beaming. Haha, such an invincible genius at the transcendent level is my apprentice. If those old guys in Immortal World knew about this, wouldn't it be a big deal? I'm so jealous. Haha, it suddenly dawned on me. Not long after, Yu Linglong, Lang Ningxuang and others also came to Piaomiao Peak. Junior brother, the rankings on the heavenly ranking have come out, and you and Liatian Sword Master are tied for first place on the heavenly ranking. Yu Linglong said excitedly. Tianbang, the list with the highest gold content in the big week. Those who can be on the heavenly list are already extremely honored. And reached the top of the list. It's something worthy of being remembered in history. Not to mention, Ling Fong still topped the list at such a young age. In terms of taking care of Linglong, 500 years from now, Great Zhou will remember my junior brother's name. And Lang Ningxuang also said, junior brother, he will be the legend of this era. Any so-called martial Dao genius will be dimmed in front of him. And other disciples of White Cloud Sect said, well, the two senior sisters are right. Ling Fong didn't care too much about reaching the top of the Tianbang. No matter how the outside world changes, Ling Fong is at ease on Piaomiao Peak, practicing the 10,000 swords art when he has time, and then cooking, finding people to have dinner with, and drinking. Even if you don't practice much, this level of cultivation is still rising unreasonably. Half a month passed. He is one small step away from the realm of martial saint. This day, Ling Fong, who had not practiced for nearly 10 days, was lying under the shade of a tree and taking a nap. The breeze was ruffling his hair. The scene in front of him was as picturesque as a poem. Ling Fong felt very relaxed and happy during this time. No need to fight and kill. Just enjoy life. Even his spiritual practice was temporarily put aside by him. Although practice is good, it would be bad if you ignore other wonderful things in the world because of practice. You should calm down and relax yourself when you have time. Ling Fong looked at the rising sun in the distance and the cloud-covered and mist-shrouded mountain peaks and smiled slightly. He felt that his whole body was sublimated under such beautiful scenery. Ding. Closing square bracket. The host has not practiced for 10 days, and has realized the combination of work and rest, and realized the true meaning of life, and rewards the host with the cultivation of martial saint. Closing square bracket. Buzz. Ling Feng's internal cultivation level skyrocketed. Wuzhen Pass was broken in response. Martial saint's cultivation is just like that. Ling Fong was silent for a moment. I actually just wanted to be lazy and relax. Why can I break through martial saint in this way? It doesn't make sense. System, are you feeling idle without giving out rewards for a whole day? Ling Feng's eyes widened. He actually admitted it. This system allocates rewards for a reason. Hosts, please do not question the system's procedure for awarding rewards. Ling Fong suspected that the other party's procedure for issuing rewards was just a formality, making up a random reason, and then throwing the reward away. But he had no evidence. He stretched and said, all right, after breaking through the martial saint, the 7 Dynasties conference is about to begin, so it's time for me to visit the royal capital. Having had enough rest, he was looking forward to the 7 Dynasties conference again. I don't know what kind of master there will be. Going to the royal capital to attend the 7 Dynasties conference, Ling Fong did not take anyone else with him, but just reported to Lu Rusi and the White Cloud Sect master. Then the figure flashed and left from Piaomiao Peak. The whole person is like a gust of wind, passing through the clouds and waves at such a fast speed that the clouds continue to explode, making bursts of strong sonic boom sounds. Like thunder. Wherever they went, some people couldn't help but look up at the sky. What's going on? Is it going to rain? No, it's so good. Why is it raining? It's not raining, so why is it thundering? Everyone was talking a lot. Looking at the continuously exploding clouds, they seemed to see a figure moving through it in a trance. One day, Ling Fong came to the capital of the Great Zhou dynasty from White Cloud Sect, thousands of miles away. The royal capital is bustling and lively, with people coming and going on the streets and numerous shops. However, Ling Fong was used to the hustle and bustle. When he arrived this time, he landed directly at the entrance of the palace. Some guards were shocked and hurriedly stepped forward. Who are you? How dare you break into the palace? Be brave and tell me your name. Ling Fong looked at these loyal soldiers in front of him, smiled slightly, and did not embarrass them. He said calmly, I would like to ask you to report on your behalf. Let me say that Ling Fong is here for the Seven Dynasties conference. Please show up to see him. The soldiers looked at each other. They also heard about the Seven Dynasties conference. Knowing that the matter was of great importance, he did not hesitate and immediately sent someone to report it. And someone suddenly came back to his senses. Wait a minute, what was his name just now? Ling Fong. Ling Fong is the number one on the list. I'm going to go to the one who is said to be the most amazingly talented genius in the history of the Great Zhou dynasty. The person who ranked first on the Great Zhou heavenly ranking at such a young age. I actually saw the perfected being. He looks even more handsome than the rumors say. Everyone looked at Ling Fong and talked a lot. And it didn't take long. The soldiers who went to report rushed out in a hurry. Mr. Ling, Your Majesty invites you to come into the main hall to see me. Well, thank you. Ling Fong smiled slightly. Then the figure disappeared on the spot. No one saw clearly how he disappeared. It's like teleporting. If he wants to enter the palace, we don't need to notify him at all, but he still follows the rules. It's so polite. To reach the top of the heavenly ranking at a young age, ordinary people would be extremely arrogant. Why would they care about other people's feelings? But he is different. He is still so humble and polite. He is really so gentle. Quote, Ling Fong, you are truly a dragon and a phoenix among men. Unconsciously, Ling Fong impressed a large number of people. Inside the palace, King Zhou was discussing the Seven Dynasties conference with his civil and military ministers when he suddenly heard that Ling Fong was visiting and he was extremely curious about this person. Whoosh! Suddenly, a figure appeared in the hall. But none of the masters in the hall could react. This speed simply frightened them. Ling Fong Xiaolu's move made King Zhou's eyes light up. Haha, I have long heard that young Master Ling is a transcendent, and he is one of the best among men. When I saw him today, I realized that he is even more outstanding than the rumors say. I am very grateful to you for participating in the Seven Dynasties conference for Da Zhou. King Zhou stood up from the dragon chair, walked down the steps, and came to Ling Fong. He actually bowed in front of many civil and military ministers. The emperor salutes. This kind of honor is almost the pinnacle of martial arts. The expressions of all the ministers couldn't help but change. Ling Fong was also a little surprised. He didn't expect that the other party would give him such a gift as soon as they met. Has his charm been improved? Ling Fong quickly helped King Zhou up and said, Your Majesty, you're welcome. King Zhou looked at Ling Fong and smiled slightly. In fact, he valued Ling Fong so much. In addition to the fact that Ling Fong ranked first on the heavenly ranking at such a young age, he also received the invitation from Feng Zhengyang, the owner of Hidden Sword Villa a few days ago. Secret message. There was only one sentence in the secret letter. Those who win the spirit will win the world. King Zhou knew that Feng Zhengyang would never say such things for no reason. Ling Fong must have more powerful energy than the number one on the heavenly ranking. This is also an important reason why he values Ling Fong. By the way, I wonder who other seniors besides me are participating in the Seven Dynasties conference this time. Ling Fong asked curiously. All the people participating in the Seven Dynasties conference this time are strong ones on the heavenly ranking. In addition to the sky-splitting sword saint, the hidden sword manor master, the wine saint, and Mr. Ling, there are also two people, namely the cruel sword saint and the invincible divine fist Li Zinshu. However, except for the sky-splitting sword master and the wine saint who are inside and outside the palace, the others are on their way here. Ling Fong was slightly surprised. I actually came early. Then, King Zhou asked people to prepare a residence for Ling Fong. Ling Fong did not refuse and temporarily stayed in the palace. King Zhou also gave him a token, allowing him to enter and exit the palace freely. Ling Fong happily accepted the offer and wandered around the palace alone. This day, Ling Fong came to an imperial garden and looked at the colorful flowers in the garden. He felt very happy. Suddenly, there was a sound of whistling swords not far away. In the garden, a woman in white is practicing her sword. The opponent's sword rises and falls, and his swordsmanship is excellent. His cultivation has even reached the realm of Wuzong. In the world of martial arts, he is definitely a top-notch genius. Sensing the movement coming from behind, the woman's face changed slightly. She turned around and stabbed out with her sword. Who dares to peek at me practicing my sword? She didn't want to hurt anyone's life, she just wanted to teach them a lesson. But when she saw the person coming, her eyes froze. This man looks so good looking. Not good. Stop now. For fear of hurting Ling Fong, she quickly withdrew the sword move, but as soon as the sword came out, she reluctantly retracted the move, causing Truchi to become confused and she couldn't help but fly backwards. At this time, Ling Feng's figure flashed and caught the opponent's body. At the same time, true qi was injected into the opponent's body to help stabilize the opponent's true qi. Are you okay, miss? Ling Fong looked at the woman and asked. The woman seemed to be dumbfounded, staring blankly at Ling Feng's face. Well, this girl just wanted to stab herself without saying a word, but for some reason she suddenly stopped her move, and now she is silent again. Pitiful. At a young age, there are problems with the brain. Ling Fong looked at the girl with pity, then helped her up, cupped her hands and said, I'm disturbing the girl, I'll leave right now. Wait a minute, I wonder what the young master's name is. I'm Ling Fong. Ling Fong, Ling Fong. I remember it. The girl in white chanted it twice. Ling Fong smiled slightly and left without saying anything else. Shortly after, in the imperial study room, King Zhou, who was correcting the memorial, suddenly heard the sound of footsteps, and then a bright and moving figure rushed in. The visitor was dressed in white palace attire, with a voluptuous figure, delicate facial features, snow-white skin, and a pair of bright autumn eyes that were clear and lively. No powder applied, but already stunning. Looking at the visitor, King Zhou smiled slightly and said, Xiaoqi, at this time, you should be practicing swordplay in the imperial garden. Why are you here in my imperial study? Father, I want to get married. As soon as he picked up the tea and took a sip, King Zhou couldn't help but spit it out. He looked at the girl in front of him in shock. What did you say? After hearing the words of the woman in front of him, King Zhou was stunned for a moment. He knew about his daughter. Normally, her eyes are higher than her head, and ordinary men would not look down on her at all, but as a princess of a country, she does have this qualification. What made him curious was, what kind of man could actually make his own daughter fall in love with him? Xiaoqi, tell me, which talent do you like? King Zhou smiled slightly. Princess Jolie pondered for a moment after hearing this and said, I don't know which family she is a talented person from, but I know his name. His name is Ling Fong. Ling Fong, what? Who are you talking about, Ling Fong? King Zhou said with his eyes widened. Yes, he said his name is Ling Fong. Father, what's wrong? Is he famous? Are you so responsive? Jolie was a little confused. She stayed in the palace all year round and had no idea what was happening in the outside world. But look at my father like this. This Ling Fong seems to be quite famous. But also, the other party's face alone is enough to dominate the world. He can no longer be described as famous. It can be said that no one in the entire Zhou dynasty knows him. He is the new number one on the heavenly ranking. After hearing this, Jolie's beautiful eyes widened and she said, Isn't Grandpa Splittian the number one on the list? Why did she become him? He and your grandpa splitting the sky are tied for first place. How is this possible? He is still so young. Xiaoqi, you have to know that there are always some unreasonable geniuses in this world. And Ling Fong is just that kind of genius. Having said this, King Zhou asked curiously, By the way, Xiaoqi, why do you suddenly want to marry Ling Fong? What do you like about him? He's so handsome. Jolie blinked, with a slightly confused look in her eyes. I have never seen anyone more handsome than him in my life. King Zhou thought of Ling Feng's appearance. That's true. Even he had to admit that if there was a beauty ranking in Dazhou, then Ling Feng would be the well-deserved number one. The kind without any suspense. When he heard Jolie's words, he couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Just because he is good-looking, you want to marry him? Isn't this reason enough? Xiaoqi, didn't your father tell you that you like him? You are obviously greedy for his body. King Zhou said angrily. Yes, I am honest and I deserve praise. King Zhou was made to lose his temper by Jolie, so he could only agree to give the other party a try. And this time, deep inside the palace, Ling Feng returned to the palace where he lived and looked at the maids. They had prepared bath water and dinner for him. Everything is ready. These maids were hired by the king of Zhou to serve him. Originally, He didn't need it and wanted to let these maids leave on their own, but all of them expressed their willingness to stay. He also said that this was an order from King Zhou. If Ling Fong let them go, King Zhou would think that they had not served well and would punish them. That's why Ling Fong let them stay. Master, the bath water is ready. Would you like to take a bath first or eat first? A maid said with a smile. Let's take a shower first. Okay, then let me serve the young master to take a bath. The maid said, with expectation in her eyes. Ling Fong waved his hand quickly, no need for this. When the maid heard this, there was a look of disappointment in her eyes. After Ling Fong left, several maids gathered together and started discussing in a low voice. Mr. Ling looks good today too. Yes, I really envy White Cloud Sect's people, who can look at this face every day. If I can look at him every day, can I live longer? Yes, looking at this face makes me feel much better every day. Can it extend my life? I really hope that the young master can stay in the palace for a longer time. Furthermore, the young master is humble and polite. I heard that he is number 1 in the heavenly ranking, but I didn't expect that he doesn't have any arrogance at all. It's really rare. Young master can't be a banished immortal and come down to earth, right? Who knows? Within the bath, Ling Fong took off his clothes and walked into the bathtub. There are many flower petals floating on the bathtub. Every time I wash it off, my body smells good. Tisk, tisk, if you don't take into account the intrigues, life in this palace is just comfortable. Ling Fong said with emotion. After taking a shower, I finished my meal. Night. Ling Fong stayed on the roof to admire the moon. Suddenly, his ears twitched and he sensed someone coming. Not far away, I saw an old man in golden robes holding a sword, walking under the moonlight, exuding a cold sword intent. The power of sword intent enveloped the world, crushed towards Ling Fong from all directions. With such a sword intent, even the owner of the hidden sword manor is slightly inferior. If I guess correctly, you are number 1 on the heavenly ranking, the sky-splitting sword master. Ling Fong looked at the visitor and smiled, revealing his identity in one word. At the same time, he was under the peerless sword intent, and he felt no pressure at all. Hearing this, the sky-splitting sword master said calmly, "Little friend Ling Fong, seeing is better than hearing 100 times. Those who can be so indifferent in the face of my sword intent, there are no more than 3 people in the whole week, Lu Rusi accepted well. Disciple. Oh, it's a long night, seniors, do you want to come up and enjoy the moon together?" Ling Fong smiled. Then I will accept my friend's invitation. The sky-splitting sword master did not refuse. The figure flashed, jumped to the top of the building, and sat next to Ling Fong. At the same time, a jar of wine appeared in his hand. Ling Feng's nose twitched. Is this wine? It's the wine brewed by the wine saint. Want some? Then you're welcome, kid. The two of them drank while admiring the moon. They even talked about everything, from astronomy to geography, from the rivers, sun and moon to the pattern of the 7 dynasties, and then to the heroes of the world. The more we chatted, the more speculative it became. Coupled with Ling Feng's inherent charm and talent, the heaven-splitting sword master looked at Ling Fong, and the more he looked at him, the more he fell in love with him. I should have known you earlier. Ha, it's not too late to get to know each other now. Not too late, not too late. The two talked all night. The next day, when King Zhou came to visit, he happened to see Ling Fong and the sky-splitting sword master there. I don't know if King Zhou is here to visit, but what's the important matter? Ling Fong asked curiously. King Zhou coughed twice. I actually came here to propose marriage. Hearing this, Ling Fong couldn't help being stunned. What to mention? Propose marriage? What's happening here? To be fair to you, I have a daughter. She fell in love with you at first sight in the Imperial Garden yesterday. King Zhou briefly explained the matter. Ling Fong also didn't expect that the person he met yesterday was actually the princess of the current dynasty. He quickly said, I am grateful for your majesty and princess's love, but I have no plans to start a family yet. He declined the offer. When King Zhou heard this, he couldn't help but feel a little regretful. If Ling Fong could become the consort, it would definitely be a great thing for Zhou. It's a pity that the beautiful lady has intentions, but the young master has no intentions. After King Zhou left, he told Jolie about the matter and sighed helplessly. Xiaoqi, it's not that my father doesn't want to help you, it's just that I don't have the intention. Father, can't you even do anything? Jolie was a little sad. Well, if it were someone else, my father could have issued a decree and asked him to obey even if he didn't want to. Unfortunately, Ling Fong is not an ordinary person. To put it bluntly, if you can really marry him, we will consider it high. Quote. I see. Jolie sighed helplessly, and then a look of determination appeared on her face. Father, I want to go to White Cloud Sect. I want to become a disciple of White Cloud Sect. Ah, what are you doing here? First come first. As long as I join the White Cloud Sect, I will have the opportunity to have close contact with Ling Fong in the future, which will make it easier for me to chase him. Xiaoqi, are you serious? King Zhou was a little surprised. He originally thought that Jolie was just having a whim, but he didn't expect that the other party seemed to be serious and actually wanted to pursue her in White Cloud Sect. I have never been so serious since I was a child. Oh well, King Zhou did not stop him. After all, if Xiaoqi can become a disciple of White Cloud Sect, it will indirectly bring him closer to Ling Fong, which will be beneficial to the royal family. Another few days passed. Except Ling Fong, several other martial artists who represented the Great Zhou dynasty in the Seven Dynasties conference also arrived one after another, except for the owner of the Hidden Sword Manor and the Wine Saint. There are two others, the Ruthless Swordsman and the Invincible Li Zinshu. What is surprising is that the Ruthless Sword Saint is a woman, dressed in red, with a cold air about her. The whole person is like an eternal iceberg. The Ruthless Sword Saint, she is a martial artist who entered the Saint realm in recent years. She practices the ruthless sword, and her sword intent is extremely cold. Li Zinshu, 60 years ago, he was able to dominate the world with his two fists and was almost invincible. Later he retired from the world and his cultivation level became more and more advanced, no less than mine. The sky-splitting sword master introduced the two people to Ling Fong. The two of them also looked at the rising star Ling Fong curiously. Especially the ruthless sword saint. When she looked at Ling Fong, she felt that her ruthless sword intention was being challenged like never before. My dear, this temperament, this appearance, it's hard not to make people's hearts flutter. No, can't break the power. The ruthless sword saint looked at Ling Fong as if he were looking at a savage beast, took 2 steps back, activated his sword intention, and stabilized his mood. Ling Fong blinked. Why does the other party seem a little afraid of me? Although he was confused, he still greeted the two of them politely. Junior, don't be polite to me. To be honest, a few other people trust you, but I don't. How much strength do you have at such a young age? I haven't seen it with my own eyes. It's impossible for me to bet the territory of Great Zhou on you, of. The invincible divine fist Li Zinshu said. Then, he looked at Ling Fong, clenched his fists, and a cold fist force spread out from him. So, let's compete. Ling Fong smiled slightly, knowing that he had to show his skills in order to convince these people. Then I'll ask Senior for advice. Bring it on. Without saying a word, Li Zinshu punched Ling Fong in the head. This punch was fierce and domineering, like a mountain being smashed out. Ling Fong stood still, and with a thought, the martial Dao sacred body opened, and the golden true qi surrounded the body, forming a body-protecting true qi wall. Boom! The fist hit Ling Fong, and a loud roar broke out. The surrounding ground sank directly. Li Zinshu's fists were slightly numb. On the other hand, Ling Fong, standing where he was as steady as a mountain, not taking a step back. Good guy, his cultivation is even more advanced. Feng Zhengyang, the owner of Hidden Sword Manor, said with a solemn expression. The wine saint on the side was already dumbfounded. I'll go. Use the body protection true qi to receive Li Zinshu's punch. Is this so perverted? He knows that Ling Fong is very strong. But I didn't expect it to be so powerful. Li Zinshu couldn't help but change his face. Martial Dao sacred body. It's indeed extraordinary. Then, follow my move again. The divine fist is invincible and can turn the world upside down. Li Zinshu shouted violently, clenched his 5 fingers, and his fist roared out like a torrent of rivers and seas, making the void sound like a tsunami. This punch was several times more terrifying than the one just now. Ling Fong was a little more serious this time. He raised his hand, made a fist as well, and punched it. Boom! In an instant, qi and blood roared, and a vision of hundreds of roaring elephants emerged in the void. This punch changes the situation. This punch is extremely domineering. It's the Chaos Fist. After punching with both fists, a figure flew out like a cannonball, smashing several palace walls one after another, while Ling Fong still stood where he was. He looked at the ruins not far away, a little stunned. It seems that I used too much force. He looked at King Zhou next to him and said, Your Majesty, I don't know how much compensation I have to pay. King Zhou also recovered from the shock and said quickly, Master Ling is joking. You can represent Zhou Dynasty at the Seven Dynasties Conference, how can I ask you to compensate? Wow, so domineering, so mighty, so handsome. Not far away. Princess Jolie held her face and looked at Ling Fong, with little stars shining in her beautiful eyes. Ding. Closing square bracket. Congratulations to the host for beating Marshal Saint away with one punch, winning the opponent's respect, and capturing the heart of the princess. The host will be rewarded with a body that is invulnerable to all poisons. Invulnerable to all poisons, this is a good thing. Ling Fong is quite satisfied. But he glanced at Princess Jolie, who had stars in her eyes not far away, and smiled helplessly, really, I've only met her once, so what's the matter? Seeing his smile, Jolie couldn't help but blush, and quickly said to the maid next to her, Did you see it? He smiled at me. He must have me in his heart. Boom. The ruins exploded, and Li Zinshu walked out laughing. Ha ha ha, okay. He looked at Ling Fong. His face was not angry at all. On the contrary, it was full of excitement. It's great that Dazhou has brought out such a monster like you. In this Seven Dynasties conference, I, Dazhou, must avenge our shame. Senior, I'm offended. It's okay. If you could have punched me to death just now, I might be even happier. Li Zinshu laughed. If Ling Fong has the fighting power to kill Marshal Saint with one punch, then in this Seven Dynasties conference, Dazhou's chances of winning will be even higher. Definitely not at the bottom like last time. Okay, everyone is here, let's set off. The sky-splitting sword master smiled. Everyone, the fate of Dazhou is entrusted to you. King Zhou saluted several people solemnly. Behind him, all the civil and military ministers of the court also bowed and saluted. Please, everyone. The sky-splitting sword master nodded slightly. Immediately, the figure rose into the sky, raised his arms and shouted, Dazhou, we must win. Dazhou, we must win. Dazhou, we must win. As everyone watched, several people turned into streams of light and left. High in the air, several people were flying in the air. Ling Fong, on the other hand, was trying his best to control his speed. Otherwise, these people will definitely not be able to catch up with him. On the road, he asked curiously, Do you know who the martial artists representing other dynasties are at this Seven Dynasties conference? The sky-splitting sword saint shook his head and said, This is a secret of the dynasty. It is not easy to detect. However, judging from the martial artists who attended last time, the martial artists who represent a dynasty are at least martial saints. And our biggest opponent is Dazhou. When Dazhou was mentioned, there was a hint of coldness in the eyes of the sky-splitting sword saints. Is Dazhou the strongest? No, among the Seven Dynasties, Dazhou is not the strongest, but Dazhou is closest to me, Dazhou, and often has conflicts with Dazhou. Therefore, in every meeting of the Seven Dynasties, Dazhou will target me, Dazhou. In the last Seven Dynasties conference, Dazhou defeated my Dazhou with a total of 37 cities. Chapter 71. Ling Fong was a little surprised. 37 cities are quite a lot. There are only more than 200 cities in the entire Great Zhou dynasty. Ma Dan, we must get those 37 cities back this time. Li Zinshu said angrily. The eyes of the other people also showed determination. Their trip is not to expand the territory, but at least to take back the lost city. Only in this way can we live up to the expectations of the people of the Zhou dynasty. The Seven Dynasties Conference was held at a place called the Top of the Sky. It is said that that place is the highest place in the entire firmament world. There was even a martial artist, where Ascension became a fairy. Of course, we don't know whether this is true or not. After all, Ascension has not happened for tens of thousands of years and has become a rumor. The top of the sky is hundreds of thousands of miles away from the Great Zhou dynasty. To rush there, even Marshal Saint would have to spend 3 days and 3 nights. The most important thing is that Ling Fong and others are going to participate in the competition. If you rush over with all your strength, Truchi will suffer too much loss. It would be detrimental to them if the conference started directly. There is still time anyway. Therefore, the few people were not in a hurry. They stopped to rest from time to time while rushing on the road. On this day, they happened to pass by a mountain range. They were already out of range. This mountain range is located at the junction of Dajo and Dachu. It's called Black Wind Mountain. Because it is located at the junction of two dynasties, it is a 3-no-no zone, where countless bandits are rampant, and the largest group of bandits is called Haifeng Village. The leader of the village is even a character with a venerable level. However, now the village leader was looking at the people in front of him with cold sweat on his face. The terrifying pressure made him almost breathless. We are passing by here and want to rest in your village for a day. Do you have any opinion? The sky-splitting sword master looked at the Black Wind Village master and said calmly. No objection, no objection. The leader of the village shook his head quickly, not daring to say no. What a joke. These guys are all martial saint. Anyone can take down his Black Wind Village, how dare he have any objections? What's even more exaggerated is the boy in the middle who looks so handsome. He has become a martial saint at such a young age. Is there any more heavenly justice? The village leader sighed helplessly, feeling as if his hundreds of years of practice had been transferred to dogs. That's all. Ling Fong and others temporarily stayed in Haifeng Village. The leader of Haifeng Village entertained them well and did not dare to show any slights. At night, when the leader of Haifeng Village got up, several black shadows suddenly appeared in front of him. These people seemed to blend into the night. Even the leader of Haifeng Village, who is a martial lord, did not notice it at all. Depend on. What's going on? Why are there so many ruthless people in my little Haifeng village today? The leader, a man in black, made a booing gesture towards him, and then said calmly, Did someone come to your place to spend the night today? Yes, they are all martial saints, right? Exactly. Very good. How many are there, whether they are men or women, and what kind of weapons they carry? Tell me all of this. The leader of the man in black walked out of the dark night, and the leader of Black Wind Village also saw his appearance clearly. Under the moonlight, he was wearing a ferocious face. The whole body exudes a chilling evil spirit. The leader of Black Wind Village swallowed his saliva and said, Shira Organization. Shira Organization, a killer organization that makes the 7 dynasties and countless martial artists fearful. They are independent from the 7 dynasties. They have no national boundaries or sects. What they believe in is only 2 words, money. As long as they have enough money, they can kill anyone. Including martial saint in the 7 dynasties Zhonggu, he is the emperor of the 7 dynasties. Facing such a notorious killer organization, the leader of Black Wind Village did not dare to disobey and told everything he knew. Oh, 5 people, is there a boy among them? That boy is also a martial saint. The leader of the black-clothed killer was a little surprised. Exactly. Interesting, the young martial saint, Dajo actually produced such a genius, but since he is a young man, even if he is a martial saint, his cultivation level is definitely not as good as that of other martial saints, and he lacks experience. He should be the cultivation level among them. The weakest. Oh, let's start with him first. The leader of the black-clothed killer sneered. He waved. A group of killers behind him took orders and rushed towards Ling Feng's location. Each of them is a martial master, and when they move, they seem to blend into the dark night, making it difficult for people to detect. It was obviously some kind of extremely advanced body technique. The killers came outside Ling Feng's house. One of them took out a pipe and pointed it at the gap between the door and window, releasing bursts of poisonous smoke. Hehehehe, this Shira ecstasy smoke is colorless and odorless. Even martial saint may not be able to detect it. And if martial saint is poisoned by this poison, at least 50% of his skill will be blocked. At that time, he will not be allowed to let us deal with it. Quote. The black-clothed killer sneered. Inside the house, Ling Fong, who was sitting cross-legged, slowly opened his eyes. He noticed something was wrong. But I don't know what's wrong. In a trance, it seemed as if something had entered the body. Am I poisoned? He blinked, but felt that the thing disappeared after entering his body, without any impact on him. He suddenly remembered that he seemed to have acquired a body that was immune to all poisons a few days ago, but someone actually dared to poison his body. Is it the leader of Black Wind Village? Wrong. The other party should not have the courage. Ling Fong sat cross-legged, making no movement at first, and then pretended to fall on the bed. Not a moment. Several black figures rushed into the house, and the leader stabbed Ling Fong in the neck with a dagger. Suddenly, Ling Fong opened his eyes and reached out to clamp the dagger. Not good. The killer's face changed slightly and his figure retreated violently. But Ling Fong was faster than him. He came up behind him in the blink of an eye, then slapped out a palm, sending him flying away. The other killers also took action immediately. Then, bang, bang, bang. They all flew backwards, smashing doors and windows. Something's wrong. How could he still have such power? Didn't he get caught in Shira's ecstasy smoke? What is going on? The killer was puzzled, and Ling Fong has slowly walked out. Under the moonlight, his clothes are as white as snow, spotless, his black hair is like a waterfall, and his temperament is beyond the dust, just like an immortal under the moon. Who asked you to come? Ling Fong said lightly. HMPH. I don't know why you weren't poisoned, but you are a young boy. Even if you are lucky enough to advance to Martial Saint, how can you be my opponent? The leader of the black-clothed killer said coldly. His aura exploded, and the surrounding area suddenly felt like thousands of ghosts wailing, and there were gusts of sinister wind. Surprisingly, he is also a martial saint. A martial saint like me who came out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood is not comparable to a martial saint like you who grew up in a greenhouse. The black-clothed killer was like a black lightning bolt, rushing toward Ling Fong. True Qi breaks out. Stab out with a sword. An incomparable Senluo aura enveloped Ling Fong. Ling Fong raised his eyes indifferently, then punched out. Suddenly, the 100 elephants roared, like a punch from the divine king that made the void roar. The black-clothed killer flew backwards at a faster speed, vomiting blood in the air, and fell to the ground like mud. What were you talking about just now? Ling Fong looked at the so-called martial saint in front of him, who walked out of the mountain of corpses and sea of blood, and smiled slightly. The leader of the black-clothed killer looked at Ling Fong with strong shock in his eyes. Impossible, impossible. I am the martial saint. How could someone defeat me with one punch? Who are you from? The other party looked at Ling Fong in horror, with a deep look of disbelief in his eyes, and Ling Fong looked at him with a smile on his face. It's my turn to ask you this. Who asked you to come? Finished. A cold sword intent spread out from his body, completely sealing off the world in all directions, and every killer suddenly felt shuddering. This moment, they felt as if the air next to them had turned into swords, cutting their bodies. It seemed that in the next moment, they would be cut into pieces. What is this sword intent? It's actually so scary. Go together. A killer shouted and wanted to make a last-ditch effort. One of them, with extremely fast movements, was walking around Ling Fong like a ghost, seeming to be looking for the most suitable time to take action. My phantom movement is as fast as a ghost. Even other strong men at the saint level cannot catch me. Before the man finished speaking, Ling Fong appeared in front of him. The other party's pupils shrank, extremely frightened. How did he keep up with my speed? Ling Fong looked at him with a smile. You're jumping up and down like a monkey, just stay down here. With a slap, the terrifying True Qi erupted like a mountain. The opponent is simply unable to resist. With a bang, his body was thrown to the ground, covered in blood and unable to move. Ling Fong struck again, so fast that no one could catch his figure. In the blink of an eye, all the killers fell to the ground. Ghost, he must be a ghost. Impossible, how can he have such speed? Everyone looked at Ling Fong in horror. Not far away, the leader of Black Wind Village witnessed everything, his pupils trembling wildly. My dear, this young man actually has such strength. Simply incredible. At this time, Ling Fong looked in his direction. The other party suddenly trembled as if struck by lightning, and then rolled and crawled in front of Ling Fong. My lord, your cultivation is so superb that you are astonished by the heavens. I knew how could these little shrimps be your opponents. Sir, as long as you say a word, I will cut these guys who offended you into pieces. The leader of Black Wind Village said with a flattering smile. Whizzing. At this moment, the sky-splitting sword master and others heard the movement and rushed over. They looked at the killer on the ground and recognized each other's origins at a glance. It's the killer of the Shiro organization. Okay, the Shiro organization actually dares to take action against us. Tell me, who is the mastermind behind the scenes? Li Zinshu stepped forward and grabbed the killer by the neck. The sky-splitting sword master walked up to Ling Fong and asked, "Are you okay?" Ling Fong shook his head, "No problem." Several people couldn't help but marvel at Ling Feng's methods. The Asura killers claim that there is no target they can't kill. It is said that they have a powerful poison in their hands. Even martial saint will suffer. Unexpectedly, they were defeated by Ling Xiaoyu today. Hey, these guys are hitting the wall. After some questioning. But the Shira killers would rather die than surrender. As killers, we also have our own principles. We will never betray our employer's identity. The leader of the killer said coldly. He looked like he was dying heroically. Ha, you have quite a professional ethics. Li Zinshu sneered, and then with a thought, he took out a pill from the storage ring and said lightly, "Do you know this is us?" Poison. You are stupid. You want to use poison to force us. We are not even afraid of death, so how can we be afraid of you? The black-clothed killer said disdainfully. No, 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 this is not a poison, this is Transcendent level invincible Albizia Julibricin pill. This thing has an extremely powerful aphrodisiac effect. And it's equally effective on humans and animals. Tell me, what will happen if I give this elixir to a group of boars and then throw you into a pig pen? Li Zinshu sneered, looking forward to it. Ling Fong and others listened and took a breath of air. Holy shit, this guy is so perverted. The black-clothed killer's face was filled with fear. If that were the case, he would rather commit suicide. I know you will want to commit suicide, but do you think I will give you this chance? I will break your limbs, imprison your true chi, and make you unable to move. You can only watch yourself being ravaged by a group of pigs. Quote. Tisk, tisk, that taste, I think you must. Stop talking, the black-clothed killer said in horror. I said it all. We were sent by the Dachu royal family. Hearing this, several people were not too surprised. HMPH, it is indeed Dachu. Do you want to weaken our power before the Seven Dynasties conference begins? How despicable. They will do this, and they are probably afraid of us. At the Seven Dynasties conference, we must let them know how powerful we are. After the questioning, Li Zinshu didn't hold back. Punch out. Kill these killers one by one. Okay, everyone. Wait, why are you so far away from me? Li Zinshu clapped his hands and wanted to say a few words to Ling Fong and others. Unexpectedly, when they saw him, they all stepped back with disgust. Even the leader of Haifeng village, who always did evil things, looked at him with fear on his face. This is the real evil man. Brother Li, don't say that I know you when you are outside from now on. The invincible divine fist turns out to be such a pervert. Several people said calmly. Li Zinshu wanted to cry but had no tears. Isn't this just for interrogation? Just a joke. After this night, several people had a new understanding of Dachu's shamelessness, and they became more careful after leaving Haifeng village. Who knows if the other side will send any more killers. A few days later, everyone saw a magnificent mountain peak from a distance. The mountain peak towers into the clouds, like a huge sword thrust into the earth, and the top of the mountain is surrounded by a large amount of strong wind. Ordinary martial artist cannot even get close. Finally reached. The sky-splitting sword master smiled slightly. The long sword at his waist was unsheathed, and then he slashed out with one strike. The terrifying sword energy tore apart the wind in front of them like tearing the sky and the earth, forming a huge passage, and everyone walked in. After crossing the gangfang, everyone arrived at the top of the mountain. On the top of the mountain, there are pavilions, and among the pavilions, a huge arena rises from the ground, exuding a sense of vastness. Ling Fong took a look and found that the arena was not simple. There was a lot of iron and stone mixed in, making the arena itself indestructible. But only this kind of arena is worthy of being used as the martial saint battlefield. Under the leadership of the sky-splitting sword master, several people came to stay in a pavilion. Suddenly, not far away from the strong wind, a powerful fist force burst out. Boom! Gangfang shatters. One after another, figures flew over, led by a man, dressed in black robes, exuding terrifying pressure, no less powerful than the sky-splitting sword master. Oh, martial saint of Da Zhou, you came early enough. I thought you would have died on the road. The man in black robe said angrily when he saw him. Looking at these people, the eyes of the sky-splitting sword saints darkened slightly. Obviously these people are not good people. Ling Fong saw a familiar figure among them, Martial Saint Chu Tianba, the Zhengguo of Da Chu. Obviously, these people are representatives of Da Chu. It is also Da Zhou's biggest enemy. I didn't die on the way. I let you down. Da Chu asked the Shiro organization to take action. He must have spent a lot of money. He failed to kill us. This is considered stealing the chicken but losing the rice. Li Zinshu sneered. The Shiro organization can't solve you, we will solve it. After this 7 Dynasties conference, Great Zhou will lose at least half of its territory. Martial Saint, headed by Da Chu, sneered. Chu Tianyi, don't fart here, let's meet Zhenjiang in the ring. HMPH, I will let you know that in front of the top martial arts of my Great Chu, you are not worth mentioning at all. Chu Tianyi snorted coldly, looking confident. And this time, outside the Gangfeng lair, auras continued to erupt. Apparently, people from other dynasties also arrived accordingly. Ling Fong swept over them one by one. Good guy. All martial saint. This meeting of the 7 dynasties was really not in vain. This is definitely the top martial Dao conference in the sky world. It can be said that the top martial artists are all gathered here. Thinking of this, Ling Fong was looking forward to it. His blood as a martial artist seemed to be boiling at this moment. Something called fighting spirit grew in his heart. Ding. Closing square bracket. Detecting that the host's blood is boiling and the fighting spirit is surging, the heart of martial artist is drawn, and the host is rewarded with the martial Dao talent. The heart of fighting. Closing square bracket. A strange power emerged from Ling Feng's body. Fighting spirit. What is this? Ling Feng was a little surprised. The fighting spirit is a kind of fighting talent. The stronger the fighting spirit of a martial artist who has the fighting spirit, the stronger his fighting power will be. Closing square bracket. Ling Feng's eyes lit up when he heard this. It's quite suitable for the current scene. He smiled slightly and was already looking forward to the next competition. Time flies. Another 3 days passed. People from the 7 dynasties are all here. Okay, everyone is here. In that case, let's get started. Chu Tianyi said calmly. The rest of the people had no objections either. Whoosh! A figure jumped off the ring, but it was Chu Tianba. He looked at the sky-splitting sword master and the others, and sneered. I, the Great Chu, will bet on leaving the city and bet on your Great Zhou Yuncheng, which one of you dares to come out and fight. The sky-splitting sword saint and others discussed it. Yuncheng is one of the most important economic and trade cities in our Great Zhou dynasty. There is no room for failure. I will fight this battle personally. The sky-splitting sword master said calmly. After saying that, he jumped off the ring and was ready to take action. Ling Fong was a little disappointed when he saw this, he still wanted to take action. At this time, the wine saint patted his shoulder and said with a smile, Ling Fong, you are our ace, don't worry, you will take action when you do. Ling Fong nodded slightly. In the arena, the sky-splitting sword master and Chu Tianba were already fighting each other. Both sides used swords, and the powerful sword energy crisscrossed, making the entire arena turbulent, and the unparalleled sword intent was transmitted in the void. During the fierce battle, the sky-splitting sword master gained the upper hand. And this time, Chu Tianba suddenly took out a pill and drank it. Boom! The next moment, his aura actually increased by 30%, knocking back the sky-splitting sword master. The wine saint and others stared at each other. What kind of elixir is that? Is it Da Chu's trump card? The sky-splitting sword master showed a trace of solemnity in his eyes. The two sides fight again. After fighting for more than an hour, there was still no winner. Chu Tianba, come back. At this time, Chu Tianyi spoke calmly. As the leader of Da Chu, he stepped forward and came to the battlefield. He looked at the sky-splitting sword master and said, the battle just now was considered a draw. Now, let me be your opponent. The stakes remain the same. Sky-splitting sword master, do you dare to accept the challenge? Hearing this, the sky-splitting sword master narrowed his eyes slightly and hesitated. Chu Tianyi was stronger than Chu Tianba, and he had just fought a battle with Chu Tianba, so it was a bit reluctant to accept the challenge at this time. But when others faced Chu Tianyi, they were not sure of victory. Thinking of this, the sky-splitting sword master said indifferently, "Then, come on." The sword intent exploded on him, pushing it to the extreme. After fighting Chu Tianba, he fought Chu Tianyi again. The sword intent still looked extremely fierce and impressive, but the wine saint and others were hesitant. "I'm afraid that the sky-splitting sword master is a little reluctant." "Yeah, can he hold on? Believe in brother splitting the sky." Boom, boom, boom. Chu Tianyi and the sky-splitting sword master fought for more than an hour. Finally, the sky-splitting sword master pushed the sword intent to the extreme, and the human sword merged into one, turning into a sword shadow that seemed to split the sky and split the earth. Boom! The void seemed to be torn apart. Facing this powerful sword, Chu Tian struck out with his palms one by one. After the shocking explosion, both sides retreated. The sky-splitting sword master wiped away the blood from the corner of his mouth and was about to fight again. But Chu Tianyi smiled slightly. "I admit defeat." As soon as these words came out, the wine saint and others couldn't help but be stunned. Why did he admit defeat? What's the meaning? Everyone frowned, feeling something was wrong. The sky-splitting sword master also frowned and looked at Chu Tianyi. "What the hell are you doing? I surrender, aren't you happy? The city belongs to you, but Great Zhou will soon belong to us." Chu Tianyi said calmly. He left a word of unclear meaning, turned around and retreated to the pavilion. The sky-splitting sword master just wanted to return. At this time, a figure fell on the ring. The person who came was a martial saint from the Daliang dynasty. He held a long sword and said calmly, "I bet Daliang Yuncheng on you, Dazhou Jincheng." I don't know how dare the sky-splitting sword saint can accept the challenge. HMPH, the sky-splitting sword master has just experienced a big battle. If Daliang wants to find trouble, come at me. The wine master snorted coldly. In the arena, he fought with the martial saint who was holding a long sword. The sky-splitting sword master went back to rest. Not a moment, the wine saint and the martial saint holding a long sword decided the winner. The wine sage wins. But then, a big man from the Chongqing dynasty came out and said calmly, "I, Daliang, will bet Dragon City on Jincheng again. Who will Dazhou send to fight? I come." Li Zinshu, the invincible divine fist, walked out. He fought against the opponent and won with just one move. But then, another person walked out. This time, it was martial saint of the Great Jin dynasty. He also challenged Great Zhou. Suddenly, the faces of the sky-splitting sword saint and others suddenly turned gloomy. They finally knew something was wrong. These 6 dynasties are actually targeting the Great Zhou dynasty. Okay, I didn't expect that you would actually unite and want to carve up my Great Zhou dynasty. The sky-splitting sword master was so angry that his face turned livid. Although they won several games in a row, it was of no use. There are only a few of them, and the martial saints from the 6 dynasties opposite them combined are several times their number. They must have suffered a serious loss of physical strength in the battle. Before long, they will lose everything they win. Not only that, even Dazhou is in danger. Chu Tianyi said with a cold expression. "Oh, heaven-splitting sword master, you know your despair now. There are 7 dynasties in the firmament realm, which is too many. You Dazhou, it's better not to continue to exist." Chu Tianyi looked at the sky-splitting sword saint and others with a sneer, as if he had everyone under control, while the martial saint from other dynasties looked at these people without the slightest pity, with an extremely cold look in his eyes. This is a national war. They won't show any mercy. If you can expand your territory and carve up the Great Zhou dynasty, why not do it? In the future, the 7 Dynasties Conference will be changed to the 6 Dynasties Conference. Yes, Dazhou, there is no need to continue to exist. It's a pity that you guys will become slaves of the subjugated country. It's not just them. The people of the Great Zhou dynasty have placed all their hopes on them, but unfortunately, they are destined to be disappointed. Haha, if the Emperor of Zhou and the people knew that he and others were about to become slaves of the country's subjugation, I don't know how wonderful their expressions would be. Yes, hearing the discussion of these people, the faces of the sky-splitting sword master and others became more and more ugly. Even the ruthless sword saint, who practiced the ruthless sword technique, had a cold look on his face. She took a step forward, and the sword intent surged out of her body. If you want to fight, then come fight. The big deal is, the fish will die and the net will fall apart. The ruthless sword saint directly pulled out the long sword from his waist and slashed it out. The cold sword intent suddenly filled the world, as if turning the world into an icy hell. At this time, Chu Tian stepped forward one step at a time, his body filled with evil energy. In that case, I'll take action on you first, and then seize the entire Great Zhou. He struck out with a palm, and his overbearing palm power seemed to turn into a skull. The ruthless sword saint did not retreat even one step, and struck out with one strike. Boom! The sword energy is vertical and horizontal, like a roaring tiger in the wind and snow. The two forces impacted and the cruel sword saint stepped back dozens of steps. Oh, you are not the second level of martial saint, and I have already entered the realm of the 6th level of martial saint. Fight me, do you have the qualifications? Chu Tian smiled and pushed out his palms again. The violent evil energy soared to the sky and struck the earth. Facing this powerful palm, the ruthless sword saint clenched her sword and prepared to fight to the death. At this moment, a sword light roared out from beside her. It landed with a bang on the palm force, accompanied by a loud bang. The sword energy is scattered and the palm strength is shattered. The impact spread. Chu Tian took 2 steps back, narrowed his eyes, looked behind the ruthless sword saint, and was a little surprised. There are still masters. Behind Wetching Sword Saint, Ling Fong smiled slightly. Sword Saint, you go back and rest first. Leave the rest to me. But, the ruthless swordsman still wants to say something. After all, what Da Zhou has to face now is not Da Chu, but the 6 dynasties. It can even be said that the whole world. Don't worry, trust me. Ling Fong looked at the ruthless sword saint with clear and serious eyes, which contained an unparalleled look of confidence. The Wetching Sword Saint's heart trembled, and the Wetching Sword technique had a tendency to break his skills again. I go. It's too dangerous. The ruthless sword master's face turned slightly red, but he quickly returned to normal. He retreated to the pavilion in a flash and watched the battle with the sky-splitting sword master, wine master and others. Everyone's faces were solemn as never before. It's a bit dangerous. Yes, the situation has gone beyond imagination. I didn't expect Da Chu to convince several other dynasties to deal with us together. What, little friend Ling Fong, I'm afraid it will be difficult to cope alone. We want to restore Tru Chi as soon as possible and be ready to take over from him. High in the air, Ling Fong stands in the sky, with sword intent flowing on his body, and transcendent as refined and refined. When Chu Tian saw it, he was extremely surprised. You must be the young man Chu Tianba mentioned. I didn't expect that there would be a genius like you in Dazhou. Why, are you envious? To be honest, I am indeed envious, but this also strengthens my determination to destroy Dazhou. If you continue to grow and help Dazhou, then our Da Chu will never have peace in the future. Chu Tian's eyes were cold. Road. After saying that, he punched Ling Fong. The strength of the fist turned into a ferocious demon, biting out. Ling Fong refused to retreat or evade. His sword finger condensed, and a sword energy swept out. The strength of the fist was easily torn apart in front of this sword energy. So strong. You are no ordinary martial saint. Chu Tianyi was a little surprised. No, I just broke through martial saint a few days ago. Are you kidding? You have this kind of strength just after breaking through martial saint. At this time, Chu Tianba spoke. That big brother, he probably didn't lie to us, because the last time I saw him, he was not martial saint. What? When Chu Tianba said this, everyone was shocked. There is no one in the world who can surpass such a young martial saint. And he has such combat power just after the breakthrough. Do you still want to live? Everyone looked at Ling Fong with shock and deep jealousy in their eyes. How could there be such a genius in this world? I feel like I've been living like a dog all these years. Ma Dan, is this still justified? Sure enough, Dazhou must be dealt with as soon as possible, otherwise with such a genius sitting in charge, Dazhou may dominate the world in no time. Chu Tianyi continued to take action. The fists and palms came out together, like a violent storm. When Ling Fong saw this, he moved like a phantom and quickly dodged all attacks, leaving everyone stunned. What the hell kind of speed is this? Too slow, too slow. A snail is faster than you. Or are you so old that you can't even compare to a snail? Ling Fong sneered while dodging. After hearing his words, Chu Tianyi's expression became more and more gloomy. I saw him punching out with both fists, and a majestic fist force-locked in the void, and then exploded from all directions, blasting towards Ling Fong without any blind spots. This attack is extremely overbearing. There is no way out. Let's see where you can dodge now. But this time, Ling Fong did not dodge and said with a smile, with your weak punch, I can do it without dodging, and you can't hurt me. After saying that, he raised his hand and shook it with 5 fingers. Martial Dao sacred body explodes. The golden domineering true chi soared into the sky like a golden beam of light. The terrifying fist power, centered on his fist, turned into hundreds of elephants and rushed away, which contained a sense of domineering and unparalleled power. It's the Chaos Fist. Boom. A terrifying blow, shattering thousands of punches. Chu Tianyi was knocked back one after another by this power, and blood flowed from the corners of his mouth. Is this power really what a young man should have? And his boxing skills are actually better than mine. Brother, please step aside and let me meet him. At this time, Chu Tianba spoke. He flashed and took over from Chu Tianyi, slashing wildly at Ling Fong with a black heavy sword in his hand. His domineering power was only slightly worse than that of Chu Tianyi. Mean, they want to use wheel fighting to consume little friend Ling Feng's true chi. The eyes of the sky-splitting sword master and others darkened. Ling Fong, on the other hand, looked indifferent, and punched out with the power of Chaos Fist, which directly knocked Chu Tianba away. The huge power made the martial saints of other dynasties feel a little frightened. I saw Ling Fong standing with his hands behind his back, his eyes like lightning, scanning the many martial saints present, and said calmly, since the 6 dynasties have decided to join forces, there is no need to go one by one. Why not go together? Let me solve it together. Come together, let me solve it together. Ling Fong looked at the martial artist of the 6 dynasties in front of him, with a faint smile on his face, extremely casual and relaxed, as if he didn't take everyone else seriously. As soon as he said these words, everyone frowned. This young man is too arrogant. That's right. Do you really think that since you have been promoted to martial saint and have the martial Dao sacred body, you can be unscrupulous? Does he really think that he is invincible? That's right, I want to see how capable he is. Why come together, one by one? He still can't bear it. Whoosh! A man carrying a black machete came to Ling Fong. I am the great Jin dynasty Zhang. Before the other party had finished speaking, Ling Fong had already punched him out. No need to tell you who you are. I am not interested in hearing about your defeat. Boom! The domineering fist power seemed to shatter the void. The man quickly slashed out with his knife to resist the punch, but under the impact of the 2 forces, his hands were numb and he was pushed back. Looking back at Ling Fong, he is still standing in the sky, his white clothes flowing. A calm and comfortable look. I'll meet him for a while. Another martial saint stood up. He used a sword, and his sword intent was burning like a fire, with a scorching aura, and he slashed out with a sword, like a bright sun falling on Ling Fong. Facing this attack, Ling Feng's expression did not change and his sword pointed. Use the misty sword technique. The sword energy shot out like a mountain range, directly tearing the sword energy like the sun into 2 halves, and even chopped the martial saint away. Depend on. What's going on with this guy? Why do you feel like he's getting stronger the more you fight? The pupils of all the martial saints shrank. It feels like after several consecutive battles, Ling Fong not only has not been weakened, but his fighting spirit has become stronger and stronger. Only Ling Fong himself knows that the fighting spirit is taking effect. Come on, keep going. Let me meet the martial saints of the 6 dynasties. Who are they? Ling Fong smiled and put his right hand on the Kixing Longyuan on his waist. Since the battle, the 7-star Longyuan in his hand has not yet been taken out of its sheath. But even so, his sword intent has stirred into the sky and roared thousands of miles. Everyone knew how powerful he was, and their hearts were extremely solemn. Continue the wheel battle. Yes, I don't believe that his true chi is unlimited. None of the martial saints came together. Instead, they maintained their basic dignity and sent people into battle in turns. Pity. The ordinary martial saint was no match for Ling Fong. He was defeated one after another. Within half an hour, Ling Fong had won 10 games in a row. In other words, he won 10 cities for Da Zhou. The rest of the dynasty's martial saint's face was so gloomy that it was almost dripping with water. You are no match for him, let me do it. At this time, a calm voice spoke. A white-haired old man walked out slowly. He was dressed in white robes, and his aura didn't look very powerful, but everyone couldn't help but feel their hearts beat when they saw him. I didn't expect that Lao Qiansheng would also take action. Tisk, tisk, Lao Gansheng takes action, this young man is going to be defeated. Good. Behind Ling Fong, the sky-splitting sword master said loudly, Ling Fong, be careful, this Lao Gansheng is the first martial saint of the Great Qian dynasty. His cultivation has reached the realm of the Great Saint, and he is the top martial saint. Don't look down on him. Great Saint, the 9th level of the martial saint, but above the 9th level, there is another realm between the martial saint and the martial emperor, that is the Great Saint. Great Saint is much more powerful than ordinary saints. Ling Fong became interested when he heard this, and the fighting spirit in his eyes became stronger. Little guy, you are very strong and outstanding. If you can join my Great Qian dynasty, I can promise that all the territory of Great Zhou will be yours. Lao Gansheng looked at Ling Fong and did not take action immediately. On the contrary, he made a sound to win over. Hearing his words, everyone's hearts trembled. Good guy. As expected of an old god, he was able to hold back his anger in the face of Ling Feng's provocation just now, and even wanted to recruit him. When Ling Fong heard this, a gentle smile appeared on his face. Are you out of your mind? Or are you just confused? Joke. The 6 dynasties joined forces to bully Zhou. As a martial artist of the Great Zhou dynasty, how could he betray his country? Lao Gansheng's recruitment seemed to be well-intentioned, but in fact, in Ling Feng's view, it was an insult to himself and put him in an unkind and unjust situation. Lao Gansheng's eyebrows twitched and he was a little angry. This man looks like an immortal, and his temperament is even more transcendent. Smile and be captivated. However, the words that came out of his mouth were extremely irritating. Okay. What a good Ling Fong. Since you don't know how to appreciate others, don't blame me for letting your genius die here today. After saying that, he took a step forward, and a powerful aura erupted from his body that Ling Fong had never seen before. This aura directly surpassed all previous martial saints. You will be defeated within 3 punches. Lao Gansheng said calmly. He clenched his fingers and punched Ling Fong. The first punch was shocking. The punch was so fierce and domineering, it was like a meteor falling to the ground. Ling Fong also punched out, hundreds of elephants roared, and the chaos fist was unleashed. With a bang, ripples appeared in the void. Immediately afterwards, Lao Gansheng took action again. Take my second punch. The world is turned upside down. Lao Gansheng roared angrily and punched out, as if he wanted to turn the world upside down. There is a sense of imbalance in the surrounding space. Some martial saints couldn't help but feel their scalps numb when they felt the power of the fist. When Ling Fong saw this, he condensed his sword finger, and the 9-level sword intent exploded, and the misty sword intent unfolded, twisting the fingers of all things in the world, turning into an ultimate sword. The swords and fists clashed, and the impact spread, causing the top of the sky to shake. The clouds with a radius of hundreds of miles are retreating crazily. Okay, let's see how you take the third punch. Lao Gansheng's True Qi operation is improved to the extreme. True Qi, a mixture of black and white energy, appeared on his fist. That is a force of yin and yang. Heaven and earth are upside down, yin and yang are out of order, Xuanwang is shattered with one punch. Boom. The black and white fist energy turned into a Tai Chi diagram and was crushed out. The sky seemed to have collapsed. Facing this blow, most martial saints would despair, close their eyes and wait for death. But Ling Feng's eyes were flashing with fierce fighting spirit. Under the influence of fighting spirit, his fighting power increased crazily, and True Qi surged out like a violent wave. Behind him, a towering law manifestation rises from the ground. It is the immortal King Dharmakaya. The body of the immortal king blooms with endless divine light, as if it is really like an immortal king descending into the mortal world, punching out with one punch with 5 fingers. Under the impact of both fists, unprecedented vibrations erupted from the top of the sky. The ground collapsed, and tiny cracks appeared in the void. Smoke and dust are billowing. I saw a figure in white standing in the sky with a transcendent attitude, with the towering law manifestation behind me, shocking the world. It was Ling Fong. He received 3 punches from the great saint one after another, but he was still unscathed. He looked at Lao Qiansheng across from him and said with a faint smile, "Old guy, let alone 3 punches, even if it is 30 punches or 300 punches, what can you do to me?" After saying that, he took a step forward and took the initiative to attack for the first time. Upon seeing this, Lao Gansheng's face changed slightly and he waved his fists out. Bang, bang, bang. The fists kept hitting and colliding in the air. After a while, a figure flew out, but it was the old god with a loose shawl. In the head-to-head confrontation with Ling Fong, he was actually at a disadvantage. Everyone gasped and couldn't believe it. Even Lao Qiansheng is no match for him. How is this possible? Isn't there anyone among us who can defeat him? And something is wrong. After fighting for so long, why is his true chi still so strong? Even the martial Tao sacred body is too much. No, if you look carefully, his true chi has weakened slightly. I believe that if we fight a few more games, we can definitely defeat him. Some people are keenly aware that Ling Feng's aura is no longer as strong as it was at the beginning, and a person's true chi reserves are limited. Even Ling Fong is no exception. Although Lao Gansheng was defeated, he also consumed a lot of Ling Feng's true chi. Everyone cheered up and continued the wheel battle against Ling Fong. Ding. Closing square bracket. It is detected that the host has defeated 10 martial saints in succession. Unparalleled results reward the host with combat-type talents. 10 times true chi. Closing square bracket. Ling Feng's eyes lit up. Boom. In his body, a wave of true chi like a vast ocean was released, and the true chi that was originally a little bottomed out instantly became full. Even 10 times as much as when you started. 10 times true chi, increased 10 times based on the host's original realm of true chi. To ensure the host's long combat endurance. Closing square bracket. Tisk, tong, this talent comes at just the right time. You weren't ready for this early, were you? Ling Fong blinked and asked. How is this possible? Everything is random. Yeah, you're right. Ling Fong nodded. He didn't pay attention to the proud system, but looked at martial saint around him coldly. A body of true chi surrounds the whole body, shaking the sky. When everyone saw this, they were immediately confused. How is this possible? His true chi had begun to weaken just now, why has it recovered now, and seems to be stronger? How did he do it? Monster. He must be a monster. Ling Fong delivers 10 times true chi burst, so you don't have to worry about true chi consumption. All kinds of big moves were launched continuously. The Chaos Fist, the Misty Sword technique, the Immortal King's Dharma body. No matter what martial saint the 6 dynasties sent, they were easily defeated by him. Soon, he won 40 games in a row. Win 40 cities for Great Joe. I'll give you one more chance. Let's go together. Maybe there is a slight chance to save your city. Ling Fong smiled. After hearing this, the expressions of those martial saints who were defeated by him changed. Do you really want to go together? To deal with a young junior, dozens of martial saints come together. If word gets out, will they continue to mess around in the future? Everyone, if we don't defeat this man, we won't be able to carve up the Great Zhou dynasty, and we won't even be able to protect our territory. Now, don't be obsessed with martial saint's face anymore, let's go together and defeat him completely. At this time, Lao Qiansheng, who had the highest level of cultivation, spoke. He rushed out first and punched out, shocking the world. Behind him, each martial saint gritted his teeth and rushed out. Dozens of martial saints, all taking action together. This scene is truly spectacular. At least, they have never seen the sky-splitting sword master, Wine Saint and others. Oh my god, we promised to fight in the ring, but now it's turned into a beating. Martial saint of the 6 dynasties, so shameless. Brother Ling Fong, you are so perverted. Okay, you are almost recovered. Let's help Brother Ling Fong together. We can't let him fight alone. The sky-splitting sword master stood up and rushed to help Ling Fong. But this time, Feng Zhengyang, the owner of Hidden Sword Manor, stopped him and said, I think it's better not to go up there yet, otherwise we will be affected. Feng Zhengyang, what do you mean? Do you want Brother Ling Fong to face so many martial saints by himself? He is still a child. Li Zinshu said dissatisfied. Feng Zhengyang's mouth twitched. Have you ever seen the kid who instantly killed Martial Saint? No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that little friend Ling Fong still has a trump card. He is going to use his sword. Feng Zhengyang looked at Ling Fong, who put his hand on the hilt of the sword and slowly pulled it out in the air, with a touch of excitement and solemnity in his eyes. Draw a sword. What do you mean? Li Zinshu was a little puzzled. Take a good look. That sword is destined to be something you will never forget for the rest of your life. Feng Zhengyang smiled. Roar. A high-pitched dragon roar accompanied by a sword light resounded throughout the world. The 7-star long yuan on Ling Feng's waist is out of its sheath. The moment the sword comes out, the sword light covered the sky and the sun, and the dragon-shaped sword energy rushed out like a tsunami. One by one, the martial saints were blown away one after another by this force. Lao Gansheng took a breath of air. That's Emperor Weapon. Emperor Weapon. A magical weapon that only a strong martial emperor can master. As soon as the 7-star dragon abyss came out, the sword energy was released, causing space cracks to appear in the sky above the entire sky. He actually has the Emperor Weapon. Mistake. So what about the Emperor Weapon? There are so many martial saints among us, are we still afraid of him getting the Emperor Weapon? Let's go together, destroy him, and take away his Emperor Weapon. Whoosh. A figure flashed in the air at an extremely fast speed, and rushed towards Ling Fong like lightning. In the blink of an eye, it came behind him and struck out with a palm. The speed of my storm martial saint is not something you can catch. But just when he thought he hit Ling Fong with his palm, he discovered that what he hit was actually just an afterimage. Ling Fong appeared behind him and said calmly, "You're not fast enough." A sword fell. The sharp sword energy split the storm sword master in front of him in half. Immediately afterwards, colorful clouds suddenly spread from all around, forming a colorful cloud in the blink of an eye, covering Ling Fong. Seeing this, some martial saints evaded. This is Poison Saint's Kaiyan poison. It is said that a martial artist, even a martial saint, who has been poisoned by Kaiyan will turn into blood within 10 breaths. It is extremely terrifying. Oh my God. Back off and don't get involved. Everyone dodges the poisonous gas in fear. The poison saint smiled slightly and said, shrouded by the poisonous miasma of colorful clouds, even the great principal immortal will definitely die when he reincarnates. But just when he thought he had solved Ling Fong, a big hand came out from the poisonous miasma and strangled him by the neck. It's just a little dust, what can it do to me? Ling Fong said calmly, and with a strong grip with his 5 fingers, the domineering force directly broke the poison saint's neck in front of him easily. Opening heaven slash. A big man held a huge axe and rushed towards Ling Fong. Ling Fong raised his eyelids and slashed out the 7-star long yuan in his hand. SLA. The huge axe broke directly into 2 pieces. And the big man holding the giant axe was cut into 2 and died suddenly on the spot. Opening heaven. You can still open a watermelon. Ling Fong curled his lips. While strolling around the court, he killed martial saint one after another without mercy. That's it. After killing him, he had to say 2 sarcastic words. It's simply murderous and heartbreaking. All the martial saints looked at him, their hearts trembling wildly, and their fighting spirit gradually disintegrated. Looking at Ling Fong is like looking at the most terrifying devil in history. With the 7-star dragon abyss in hand, Ling Feng's combat power soared. As if he transformed into a demon, killing many martial saints in front of him without restraint. At this moment, what appeared in front of everyone was an extremely strange picture. A young man dressed in white with an extraordinary temperament was holding a long sword. Wherever he went, there was a bloody storm, with flesh and blood flying everywhere, creating a hellish scene. The scene in front of me can only be described in 8 words. The posture of banishing an immortal, the methods of Shira. But the sky-splitting sword master, Wine Saint and others couldn't help but applaud. The 6 dynasties joined forces to bully their great Zhou. If they saw the martial saint of the 6 dynasties being slaughtered without scruple, they would only feel happy. This may be the last 7 dynasties conference. HMPH, the 6 dynasties are so targeting me, the great Zhou dynasty, why will they come to participate in the so-called 7 dynasties conference in the future? I will teach them a lesson today. That's right, let them know how awesome you are. High in the air, Ling Fong holds the 7-star Longyuan in his hand, and the killing continues. Every time he struck out a sword, the sword energy shot out like a mountain. No martial saint could catch his sword, and they were all easily blown away. Even being killed. The power of Emperor weapon is so terrifying. Do you think you are the only one who has the Emperor weapon? At this time, a loud roar sounded. I saw a figure rising into the sky. The other party is Chu Tianyi. I saw that at some point, he took out a blood-red sword in his hand. On the blade, there is a blood-chilling aura that makes people shudder. That is, the royal sword of the Dachu royal family, the blood god Slash. My dear, Chu Tianyi actually took out all these treasures. It seems that they are very determined to destroy the Great Zhou this time. Okay, just right to compete with the Emperor weapon in Ling Feng's hands. Everyone's eyes lit up. Ling Fong also became interested. He looked at the knife and said with a smile, "It's interesting, let's try it. Let you know the power of my Dachu blood god Slash." Chu Tianyi roared angrily and slashed down at Ling Fong with the long knife in his hand. The bloody knife shadow was overwhelming. Ling Fong also slashed out with one sword. With a bang, the impact of Emperor weapon was like two stars colliding together. Both sides retreated. Chu Tianyi roared and rushed towards Ling Fong again. Misty sword intent. Ling Fong raised his long sword high and used the misty sword technique. Everything is a sword. The power of the integrated Union Emperor weapon turned into the terrifying sword of opening heaven that split the earth. Chu Tian's pupils shrank, he blocked it with his knife, and with a clang, he couldn't help vomiting blood and flew backwards. The sword in his hand also came out and was stuck on the ground. The most important thing is that there is an extra gap in the Emperor weapon. Ling Fong chopped down the Emperor weapon with one sword. This made everyone gasp. Monster. If this person doesn't die, he will definitely be the next martial emperor. Ling Fong looked at everyone with a smile. The next sword will let you know that the price of joining forces to bully me, Da Zhou, will be too high for you to bear. After saying that, the smile on his face faded. Instead, there was endless coldness. 10,000 sword Ju. Ling Fong drank indifferently, and the true qi spurted out, intertwined in the void, and turned into thousands of sword shadows, suspended in the sky like stars all over the sky. The domineering and cold aura made everyone stunned. What kind of swordsmanship is this? One sword can transform 10,000 swords. How did he get so many incredibly powerful martial arts at such a young age? Who is his master? Chaos Fist, Flying Immortal Sword Technique, Misty Sword Technique, Immortal King Dharma Body. And this 10,000 sword art. Any one of them is enough for a person to spend a lifetime learning. But Ling Fong alone has it all. And he is still a martial saint. Go! Ling Fong drank indifferently, and thousands of swords roared out like a long river. The integrated Union ethereal sword intent even cut cracks in the void. The sword intent roars, as if it has penetrated into another world. Everyone was dodging like crazy, but they still couldn't avoid it. Some martial saints were unable to resist and were strangled to pieces by the sword energy on the spot. It only takes 10 breaths. Dozens of martial saints, more than half lost. Ling Fong, on the other hand, remained unscathed as always. Surrender. We surrender. At this moment, Lao Gansheng couldn't help but said loudly with fear on his face. Surrender, okay, then, what's the price? Ling Fong smiled. 10 cities, we will give each country 10 cities as compensation to the Great Zhou. There was a hint of unwillingness in Lao Gansheng's eyes, but he still said helplessly. The sky-splitting sword saint, wine saint and others' eyes lit up when they heard this. 10 cities in one dynasty. In other words, 6 dynasties and 60 cities. This is definitely a great thing for Dazhou. But when Ling Fong heard this, he raised his eyebrows. 10 cities. Are you sending beggars here? 100. One dynasty, 100 cities. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. How many cities does a dynasty have in total? Ling Fong wants 100 seats for this opening. 6 dynasties, 600 cities. Oh my god. This is almost as long as 3 weeks. Lao Gansheng and others were also confused. But then they all turned red with anger. Are you kidding? 100 cities. Why don't you let us give you the entire dynasty? That's right, do you know what you are talking about? 100 cities, 6 dynasties and 600 cities, if we give them to you, can you Dajo eat it? That's too presumptuous. You might as well kill us all here. Ling Fong smiled slightly when he heard this. Okay, then let's kill you all here. The majestic killing intent gradually spread out of him. Lao Gansheng and the others' hearts trembled. When they thought of the other party's methods just now, they knew that the other party was absolutely capable of wiping them all out. No, it's important to save your life. Lao Gansheng gritted his teeth and said, 100 seats, 100 seats. Empty words, make a contract. Ling Fong said lightly. Good. Lao Gansheng reluctantly wrote down the contract and shed blood as evidence. The other martial saints had no choice but to follow suit one by one. That's all. Fully 600 cities belong to the Great Zhou dynasty. The sky-splitting sword master and others looked at each other, their hearts filled with excitement. They originally thought that they would just take back the 30 dozen cities that were taken away last time. Unexpectedly, there are now 600 more cities. Is this a dream? If so, don't wake them up. Very good, the contract has been established. If you dare to go back on it, then don't blame me. I will personally go to your palace and talk to your emperor. Ling Fong smiled. Lao Gansheng and others were so angry that they almost vomited blood. But it's not easy to have an attack. Walk. Lao Gansheng took the remaining people and left in despair. The rest of the people also left. It's outrageous, it's outrageous. This is definitely the most outrageous event in the history of the Seven Dynasties Conference. 600 cities are just ours. I'm not drunk and dreaming, am I? The wine saint murmured. Li Zinshu went up and punched him. What are you doing? Does it hurt? What do you think? I'll punch you and see if it hurts. It hurts, it means we are not dreaming. Several martial saints were beyond excited. Looking at Ling Fong is like looking at a savior. At this moment, they want to shout. Ling Fong, you are my god. The top of the sky. Several martial saints were beyond excited. But soon, they packed up their mood and prepared to return to Dajo. On the road, several people are still in high spirits. In the past, after the Seven Dynasties Conference, they returned to the Great Zhou with heavy hearts. They had never been as excited as this time. However, after being excited, the sky-splitting sword master also felt a little worried. This time, little friend Ling Fong has won 600 cities for us. It is indeed something worth being excited about. But now that we have not really obtained these 600 cities, I am afraid that we are too happy too soon. Hearing this, the other people also expressed their thoughts. The wine saint frowned and said, what the sky-splitting sword saint means. Are you worried that the people of the 6 dynasties will regret it and not give us these 600 cities? Exactly. Hunter Sky Sword Master nodded. If it were 60 would be okay, but with 600, this is no longer cutting the flesh of the 6 dynasties with a knife, almost cutting them in half. They may not necessarily give it. But they have written the contract. The contract can be broken. Aren't they afraid of being laughed at by everyone in the world? If there is only one dynasty, they may still have concerns, but if 6 dynasties tear up the contract at the same time, that may not be the case. Everyone thinks about it. There is only one dynasty, and the other party may still want to show off. But the 6 dynasties are shameless, so there is no need to worry. Thinking of this, the joy of getting 600 cities was immediately diluted a lot. It doesn't matter, even if they don't give it all, but give half, it will be an unprecedented victory for Dajo. Feng Zhengyang said with a smile. The others nodded and thought it made sense. Soon, several people returned to Dajo. Inside the palace of the Great Zhou dynasty. Ever since the sky-splitting sword master and others went to attend the Seven Dynasties Conference, he had not thought about food and drink every day, waiting for the news with anxiety. Your Majesty, the sky-splitting sword master and the others are back. At this time, a eunuch rushed into the hall and said excitedly. King Zhou stood up suddenly and hurriedly walked out of the palace, not forgetting to ask, by the way, what are the expressions of the sky-splitting sword master and the others? This, I can't tell for sure. It looks like happiness, but it doesn't look happy. It looks heavy, but it doesn't look heavy either. What nonsense are you talking about? King Zhou rolled his eyes. I became more and more confused. So, is this a loss or a win? Come to the palace. The sky-splitting sword master and others were waiting here. When they saw King Zhou coming, they wanted to salute, but King Zhou quickly helped them up and asked anxiously, "The sky-splitting sword master, I don't know about this 7 Dynasties conference. What's the result?" "Oh, Your Majesty, please take a look." The sky-splitting sword master smiled slightly and took out a few contracts. When King Zhou opened it and took a look, he was startled for a moment. Then he thought there was something wrong with his eyes and quickly rubbed his eyes. After confirming that he was not dazzled, King Zhou stared at the contract with a look of disbelief. Is this true?" "Your Majesty, it's absolutely true. I am not dreaming, right?" King Zhou even couldn't help pinching his cheek to make sure it was true. He couldn't help laughing. "Really, everything is true. There are 600 cities, and I, Zhou, actually won 600 cities. Hundreds of cities." As soon as this statement came out, all civil and military officials in the court took a breath of air. 600 cities. This is too fantasy. Even if they use their best imagination, they can't imagine it at all. Oh my god, 600 cities, this is too crazy. How did the sky-splitting sword master and the others do it? Everyone was talking and couldn't believe it. It wasn't until King Zhou unfolded the contract in his hand that everyone had no doubts. They all looked at the sky-splitting sword master and others as if they were looking at the savior. The sky-splitting sword master smiled slightly and said, "Your Majesty, the biggest contributor to the 7 Dynasties conference this time is not me, but Ling Fong. He won these 600 cities by himself. Without him, I'm afraid the consequences would be disastrous." The sky-splitting sword saint once again said something shocking. 600 cities were actually won by Ling Fong alone. What the hell is going on? King Zhou asked curiously. The sky-splitting sword master immediately told the story vividly. After everyone listened, they looked at Ling Fong with deep shock and admiration in their eyes. Then, the king of Zhou led all the civil and military officials to bow to Ling Fong. "I represent the people of Great Zhou. Thank you so much, young Master Ling." "Thank you, young Master Ling." Ding. Closing square bracket. The host is loved by the king of Zhou and the civil and military officials of the Great Zhou dynasty. His prestige in the Great Zhou dynasty reaches its peak, and the host is rewarded with Tianlong Bayan. Tianlong Bayan, what kind of martial arts is this? Ling Fong was a little curious. Then, a mysterious piece of music appeared in his mind. It turns out to be sonic martial arts. Ling Fong suddenly realized. King Zhou doesn't need to be polite. This is what I should do. Besides me, the sky-splitting sword master and the wine saint also contributed a lot. Ling Fong said with a slight smile. "Haha, my friend, these words make us ashamed. Yes, if it weren't for you in this 7 Dynasty conference, we would have been completely defeated, let alone win 600 cities. You alone won these 600 cities, there is no doubt about it. Other than cheering and cheering from the side, we didn't seem to be of much help." Feng Zhengyang rubbed his nose. He felt that it was a bit redundant for him to attend the 7 Dynasties conference this time. At least the others played 1 or 2 games. And he didn't play a single game. It seemed like he didn't do anything except shouting 666 from the side. Anyway, the 7 Dynasties conference was successfully concluded. That night, King Zhou held a grand banquet to welcome Ling Fong and others. At the banquet, the civil and military ministers drank and drank in a harmonious atmosphere. Everyone has a smile on their face. At the banquet, King Zhou suddenly stood up and said, "Everyone, I have something to announce. From now on, I want to make White Cloud Sect the #1 martial arts sect in the Great Zhou dynasty and the sect of the country. White Cloud Sect. If a person enters the court, he must be at least a 5th grade official. He will enjoy 3 times the salary of other officials." Everyone was a little surprised when they heard this. King Zhou's move was to win over White Cloud Sect. But considering that Ling Fong came from the White Cloud Sect and made such a great contribution to the Zhou dynasty this time, it is understandable for the King of Zhou to do this. Then, the King of Zhou continued. "In addition, I also have Ling Fong, my great hero of the Great Zhou dynasty, as King Bingzhan. From now on, in Great Zhou, seeing King Bingzhan is like seeing a person. He has the same title as the person. Status." As soon as this statement came out, everyone was shocked. Good guy. King Zhou was really willing to spend a lot of money to win over Ling Fong. Directly give Ling Fong the title of king. And he is also the supreme side-by-side king. Ling Fong was also a little surprised. Your Majesty, this. Ling Fong, you don't need to say anything. I have made up my mind. You have made such a great contribution this time. If I don't even give you a king, it would be too stingy. If word spreads, the people of Zhou dynasty will also have opinions. Oh well, Ling Fong nodded and did not refuse. If you want to be a king, just be a king. A name is not a big deal. The 7 Dynasties Conference of the Great Zhou Dynasty won back 600 cities. White Cloud Sect becomes the king. Ling Fong was named king of Side by Side. A series of news spread quickly. For a time, Great Zhou was in turmoil, and the world of Great Zhou was shocked. The word Ling Fong has also been discussed a lot in the streets and alleys. Both ordinary people and martial artists regard it as a myth. Ling Feng's prestige in Great Zhou has reached an unprecedented level. Number 1 on the heavenly list is not enough to describe him. He became the only one in the world of Dazhou. Alas, a person with such prestige is actually a young man. If this person has a disobedient heart, I'm afraid the consequences will be disastrous. When Ling Feng's prestige was at its peak, some people were worried. Some people even think that Ling Fong may rebel. With his current strength and prestige, it is entirely possible to unseat the king of Zhou and sit on the throne of emperor himself. Fart. Ling Fong won back 600 cities. This is comparable to 3 weeks. Do you think he will rebel? Yes, and he is already a martial saint at a young age. Wouldn't it be nice to pursue a martial Dao? What kind of emperor would he be if he were to behave properly? Being an emperor is so tiring, Ling Fong won't do it. White Cloud Sect wanted him to be the sect leader, but he resisted. Most of the people who say these things are from White Cloud Sect. They all know what kind of person Ling Fong is. Make him emperor. Oh, it's impossible to beat him to death. In the palace, King Zhou had heard about Ling Feng's remarks about possible rebellion, but he just smiled and didn't take it to heart. Ling Fong wants to rebel. Haha, it's funny. Little friend Ling Fong has made amazing contributions to the Zhou dynasty and has great righteousness. How can such a person rebel? When I offered him the title of king side by side, he even wanted to refuse. Moreover, if he really wants to be the emperor, he doesn't need to use any soldiers. It's not impossible for me to just surrender to him. These words of King Zhou spread to the people and caused quite a shock. Especially the last sentence. If Ling Fong wants to be the emperor and I give in directly, it makes people take a breath of air. Unexpectedly, Ling Feng's prestige has reached such a high level. I can only use 8 words to describe it. Unprecedented. Ling Fong also heard the rumors from the outside world, but he didn't care. After staying in the palace for a few days, he planned to return to White Cloud Sect. After saying goodbye to King Zhou, he flashed and returned to White Cloud Sect at an extremely fast speed. Just as he arrived at the mountain gate, a disciple saw him. Then I heard him shout loudly, King Bingzhan is back. The king of Side by Side is back. This disciple's voice was so loud that it spread throughout the White Cloud Sect. Figures flew from all directions. King Bingzhan, where is he? Junior brother, you're back, you missed us so much. We thought you planned to be the side-by-side king in the capital and didn't want to come back. Everyone came forward to show concern and condolences one by one. Especially Ji Yu Linglong and Lang Ningxuang took this opportunity to hug Ling Fong, and then pretended to let go as if nothing had happened. Others took the opportunity to touch Ling Feng's face, arms, and chest. Junior brother, look at you, you've lost weight. Yes, it must be hard to eat in the palace. Hey, I won't wash this hand anymore. Ling Fong looked at the senior sisters and sisters gathered in front of him, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. I have only been away for a few days. This is too enthusiastic. After dealing with everyone, Ling Fong swooped back to Piaomiao Peak. Before he could enter the door, a figure couldn't help but swoop out. I touched Ling Fong up and down, as if he was looking for something. Lu Rusi looked at Ling Fong and said, "Where is my wine?" Ling Fong then remembered that the wine sage seemed to have promised Lu Rusi that if Ling Fong attended the 7 Dynasties conference, he would give him 3 jars of wine. He slapped his head and said, "I forgot to get it from the wine master." Ah, ha, say it again. Lu Rusi's beautiful eyes widened and she stared at Ling Fong, while Ling Fong rubbed her nose and said with a helpless smile, I really forgot to take it. When Lu Rusi heard this, his whole body seemed to have been drained of all his strength, and he collapsed on the ground, his eyes dull as he said, wine, 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 my wine. Master, isn't it just a few bottles of fine wine? You can get it from the wine master next time you meet him. Ling Fong knelt down and touched Lu Rusi's head to comfort him. Tisk. It feels good in hand. I don't know what brand of shampoo master uses. Ding. Closing square bracket. The noble host forgets things too much, so the host will be rewarded with 100 jars of fine wine. At this time, the system voice sounded. Ling Fong was stunned for a moment. Is this okay? Tong, you are becoming more and more unreasonable in giving out rewards recently. Why don't you make up a decent excuse? Why do noble people forget things so much? Can you still get rewards? Ling Fong said speechlessly. The reward has been issued and cannot be withdrawn. Well, I didn't say no anyway. Ling Fong touched Lu Rusi's head, and then took out a jar of nectar. Actually, after I drank the nectar last time, I couldn't forget it, so I found some materials and brewed a few jars myself. Master, please try. He opened the bottle. An alluring aroma of wine filled the air. Lu Rusi, who had dull eyes at first, smelled this breath, and immediately looked at the wine with bright eyes, and took a sip from the wine jar. That's right, that's the smell. My dear disciple, I didn't expect you to be able to make wine. How many surprises do you have that the master doesn't know about? Lu Rusi said ecstatically. A good disciple knows how to make wine. You can also brew wine. This made her even more excited than when she broke through the martial emperor. Doesn't this mean that there will be an endless supply of nectar to drink from now on? Thinking of this, Lu Rusi couldn't help hugging him and kissing him hard on the cheek. Disciple, brew more wine in the future. Ling Fong wiped off the lip marks on his cheeks and said helplessly, Master, men and women don't kiss each other. It would be bad if others could see this. What's wrong? What's wrong with this? I'm my own apprentice. I can do whatever I want. Let alone a kiss. I'll hold you to sleep. Who dares to say anything? Come on, give me another kiss. Lu Rusi curled her lips, then pursed her lips and leaned toward Ling Fong. But Ling Fong stretched out his hand to block it. Master, respect yourself. No, come on. No, master. HMPH, the more you resist, the more excited I get. Not a moment. Lu Rusi looked triumphant and glanced condescendingly at Ling Fong, who was kissed by her with lip marks all over his face. Then he happily held the wine and ran away to drink. Ling Fong was lying on the ground, his clothes were messy, and his eyes were staring blankly at the blue sky. I don't understand anymore. Junior brother. At this time, the voices of Ji Yu Linglong and others came from not far away. Ling Fong quickly stood up and wiped his face. Junior brother, your clothes seem a bit messy. Oh, it's okay, I was working just now. Ling Fong said calmly. Ji Yu Linglong glanced at him suspiciously, then wrinkled her nose and sniffed Ling Fong. Junior brother, you have a scent. She became wary, and it smells like a woman. Ling Fong looked at Ji Yu Linglong and took a breath of air. Good guy. Junior sister, are you a dog? Can you smell this? Ling Fong remained calm in the face of danger, sniffed his hand, and said lightly, it doesn't smell like a woman, but it smells like wine. No, in addition to the aroma of wine, there is also a feminine aroma. I can never smell it wrong. This aroma is very familiar. Ji Yu Linglong narrowed her eyes slightly, then glanced at Lu Rusi who was drinking not far away, leaned forward and whispered, Junior brother, is Elder Lu drunk and acting crazy, bullying you again? Etc. Why do you want to use it? Ling Fong blinked, hesitated, and then nodded. When Ji Yu Linglong heard this, she immediately felt heartbroken. I knew it. Last time Elder Lu kissed you after drinking, but this time he bullied you again. I knew that Elder Lu was a crooked elder. Lang Ningxuang next to her also gritted her silver teeth, clenched her fists, and said coldly, why is it not me who bullies junior brother? Ling Fong was stunned. Senior sister, do you want to listen to what you are saying? Hey, two little girls, what are you talking about? At this time, Lu Rusi, who was half drunk, walked over to Ji Yu Linglong and Lang Ningxuang, holding them in his arms with one hand. Elder Lu, let us go. Elder Lu, how much have you drunk? Hey, Elder Lu, why are you messing with your relatives? Hey, Xiaoshuang smells good. Hiss. Elder Lu, don't pinch me. Tisk, tisk, little Linglong, you need to eat more, it's not big enough. Ling Fong glanced at the three girls who were messing around, and then looked at the wine jar not far away. What a guy. A whole jar of fine wine was consumed in just a short time. I won't play with you anymore, I'm going back to the house to sleep. Lu Rusi staggered into the house. Ji Yu Linglong and Lang Ningshuang breathed a sigh of relief. Drunk Elder Lu is so scary. No wonder junior brother is being bullied. The corner of Ling Feng's mouth twitched. Can he say that the other person bullied him when he was not drunk? Ji Yu Linglong looked at the back of Lu Rusi who walked into the house, made a gesture on her chest, and swallowed. Elder Lu's is so spectacular. Ling Fong recalled several times when he almost suffocated. It's indeed scary enough. By the way, junior sister, why did you come to me? Ling Fong asked curiously. It's okay, I'm just curious about the 7 Dynasties conference, so I came to ask. Oh, it's nothing. Ling Fong smiled slightly and briefly told what happened. Although the two women had no personal experience, Ling Fong looked relaxed when he said it, but when they heard that he had fought dozens of martial saints alone, they still couldn't help but take a breath of air and looked at Ling Fong in shock and admiration. After the two women left, someone came to ask them about the 7 Dynasties conference. Ji Yu Linglong spoke vividly. Had it not been for junior brother this time, Great Zhou would have been doomed. The 6 dynasties besieged Great Zhou, thanks to junior brother for turning the tide. It is said that on that day, the 6 dynasties planned to use the wheel battle to consume the physical strength of the junior brother. Unexpectedly, the junior brother was stronger than they thought, and he fought dozens of martial saints alone. What happened at the 7 Dynasties conference was spread in White Cloud Sect. Everyone was talking about it. Have you heard? The 6 great dynasties besieged Dazhou. If there were no junior brothers, Dazhou would have to finish it this time. I heard that the Great Zhou dynasty was already over. It was junior brother Ling who fought against dozens of martial saints alone and finally turned the tide. What? Junior brother Ling Fong fought with hundreds of martial saints. In the end, he won 600 cities for Dazhou. This time the 6 dynasties are going to cry to death. I heard that they sent nearly 1,000 martial saints, but they were wiped out by my junior brother with one sword. I heard that the 6 dynasties sent Emperor Wu, but they were still no match for my junior brother. Hundreds of martial emperors. That's too exaggerated. Dozens are more or less. The events of the 7 Dynasties conference spread in the White Cloud Sect. The more rumors spread, the more outrageous it becomes. When Ling Fong came out of Piaomiao Peak, the version he heard was that he alone fought 1,000 martial emperors and finally won a complete victory. Some people even saw him and ran up to him excitedly and asked, "Junior brother, when will you prepare for ascension?" Ling Fong didn't know how to answer for a moment. And this time, suddenly there was the sound of gongs and drums outside the mountain gate. Everyone went down the mountain to take a look, and saw a gorgeous sedan being carried to the mountain gate, and an exquisite-looking woman in a gorgeous robe walked out of it. Ling Fong glanced at the other party, quite surprised. Is it her? The visitor is none other than Princess Jolie. Jolie. After seeing him, Jolie's eyes lit up. She ran up to him, bowed and said, "Jolie has met senior brother Ling Fong." Senior brother? Yes, I plan to join the White Cloud Sect today. You will be my senior brother from now on. Please give me more guidance in the future. This is easy to talk about. Ling Fong glanced strangely at Jolie, who had eyes full of little stars. Thinking that the other party had wanted to recruit me as their consort, an idea came to mind. Wasn't the other party planning to join White Cloud Sect because of me? No, no, no. The other party is actually willing to leave behind the luxurious life of a princess to come to White Cloud Sect. In the sect's main hall, the master of White Cloud Sect is holding a disciple acceptance ceremony and is preparing to accept Jolie as his disciple. After all, the other party is the princess of Zhou dynasty, and her status is extraordinary. Therefore, he, as the sect leader, could only accept him as his disciple. Sect master, can I really not join Piaomiao Peak? Jolie said a little disappointed. The master of White Cloud Sect shook his head. I asked my junior sister, and she said that I only need one apprentice, Ling Fong, and I won't accept any other apprentices. Oh, Jolie lowered her head in disappointment. I originally thought that those closest to the water and towers would get the moon first. Lang Ningxuang and Ji Yu Linglong looked at each other and immediately understood Jolie's intention, with a hint of hostility in their eyes. Good guy. Here comes another love rival. Still a princess. By the way, I wonder what the princess's qualifications are like. Is there any martial arts or something like that? I can teach her according to her aptitude. The Lord of White Cloud Sect asked curiously. Oh, I'm body of pure yin. Jolie said. The owner of White Cloud Sect's eyes lit up, body of pure yin. This physique has huge potential. Princess, given time, will definitely become a martial saint. White Cloud Sect has an extra talent, which is also a good thing. Time flies. In the blink of an eye. Half a month has passed. This day, Ling Fong held a jar of fine wine and drank alone among the clouds. He has the talent to become stronger when he drinks. For him, this wine is no less effective than a panacea. Over the past half month, his cultivation level has been rising steadily. Now it is the 7th level of martial saint. However, realm comes down to realm, and combat power comes down to combat power. Although he is at the 7th level of martial saint, Ling Fong feels that he has no pressure to beat the great saint. As for Wu Emperor realm, I haven't encountered it yet, so I can't say. Junior brother, it's bad, something happened. At this time, Ji Yu Linglong flew over, looking furious. What's wrong, senior sister? The border is an emergency. The 6 dynasties have sent millions of troops to press the border. Ji Yu Linglong said anxiously. Hearing this, Ling Feng's eyes flashed with chills. Sure enough, I know that the 6 dynasties will not be willing to admit defeat honestly. Since they want to start a war, let them look good. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.